Welcome to your doom.
Listen, you know what I've always wondered?
Oh, good God. Yeah. What have you wondered, Atul?
What I've always wondered is in John Carpenter's seminal classic Big Trouble in Little China, when Kurt Russell meets Kim Cattrall for the first time at the airport, they have an exchange. And she says something to the effect of, you should see what I see from where I'm standing. It's Miller time. She tells him. She's like, it's Miller time. And he looks at her with that, and he goes into that full, like, smug Kurt Russell, like, you know what I say when it's Miller time? And then we never find out. Like, ever since I saw that movie, I'm like, what does Jack Burton say when it's Miller time? And we'll never know. We don't know. I don't know what that line even means. I don't know what Miller time means. I don't know what that is. It's always been this part of the movie where I'm like, shrug. Like, what the hell? What does he say? Can someone tell me? Do you know anything about this? Can you tell me what this Miller thing is about? What's going on here? Yeah, tell me.
I don't want to, because you're setting me up. I feel like something's coming and you're going to drop a goddamn hammer on me.
Yeah, no. I don't.
Isn't that Miller Beer's slogan? That's their slogan.
Well, no, it's Miller time.
Yeah, that means
Miller Beer's slogan. But he's like, you know what I say when it's Miller time? Like, what? Like,
oh wait, did he say that? That was his.
He says that because he has that smug look, and he's kind of just turns around to her like all swaggy. He's like, you know what I say when it's Miller time? You know, he says that, and it makes me laugh because it's just Kurt Russell playing that like Jack Burton's smugness, like pompous, like male, smugness, and it's funny, but we'll never know what he has to say. Like, I'm not even sure why she says it's Miller time. Why is she like commenting on his weight? Like, I don't know what's going on.
No, she's saying he smells like beer.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. I feel pretty stupid right now.
I think you should.
No, but she says you should see from where I'm standing. She says see, not smell. So I don't know. You know what I mean? We don't know. I don't really know.
I don't know either.
That's one line that doesn't really make much sense to me. And the Miller thing, I sort of get, but we don't really drink Miller in Canada. I guess MGDs are here, but like, I don't know. I never see them at wherever I go. I don't,
Miller Lite? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't really. Do you go out and buy a case of Miller Lite? I don't know. I've never done that.
No. Coors Light is kind of more if I'm going to get a light beer, it's Coors Light, I guess. Miller Lite's not bad though.
But isn't Miller? I thought the thing was the champagne of beers. Isn't that Miller?
No, that's
Miller Genuine Draft MGD.
That's MGD, but that's not the champagne of beers. That's I don't know, which one is it. I'd have to look it up.
Anyway, listen, shut up. My name's Atul Katra. I'm one of your harbingers of doom. I'm with my co-host here, Justin Carcassoli, who's another harbinger of doom.
I'm still reeling from this entire conversation. I thought you were setting me up for something.
The look on your face.
I was like, what is he doing?
This was priceless. It was priceless.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I am. We don't know. I could be playing the long game here. Let's see how it goes. Let's see. Let's see where it takes us.
I'm glad to see where it takes us because I like me a good Jack Burton reference. I like beer.
Yeah.
So Miller Lite's in my wheelhouse, as it were.
We should one show just be like, finish that sentence. You know what I say when it's Miller time? And then we'll just come up with what he was going to say before they are rudely interrupted at the airport. Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that. We'll do that next time.
Jack Burtonisms.
We are here. We're gathered here today.
Yes.
To talk about the newest addition in the Alien franchise, Alien Romulus. But before we do that, I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about something completely disconnected first.
Absolutely. That's my favorite thing.
I think that's a good way to like ease right into Alien, is to talk about things that are overrated and underrated. So I think we both have kind of something that's overrated or underrated Justin,
Yeah.
why don't you go first? What do you think is overrated or underrated? It doesn't have to be related to Alien, but if it is, you know what? Even better.
Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna fix my chair here. Overrated. That's probably
Mhm.
is probably the thing that irks me the most when dealing with like instant messaging in general or just talking to people, keeping track of things, communicating with
Yep.
people, is the need for people to have thumbnails included on links when you send it to them in WhatsApp. That really
Oh,
upsets me because it loses
yeah.
all the majesticness and the surprise of what you're sending somebody. And it's frankly, I feel like the mystery of things is being taken out. And as a magician, I love me a little bit of mystery. I love me a little bit of surprise, a little pizzazz, if you will. And I think
Right.
that shit's overrated. We should just
Yeah.
get rid of thumbnails and preview images of videos that
Yeah.
you're sending people.
To be fair,
To be fair,
you can get rid of the thumbnail image, and you
that's true.
frequently do. And I, and sadly, your wife, have been on the receiving end of thumbnailless links to either YouTube videos, YouTube shorts, or Instagram reels or videos, short videos, or whatever that don't have thumbnails. And we have been treated to some of the most upsetting, confusing, and just generally like discomforting footage. And truly, it's it's like it's the issue. I don't think the issue is that apps require thumbnails. That's your problem. I think you have a significant problem, like maybe you're just not well.
Or-
I think personally, and you should seek help. But I think your issue is that people are on to your bullshit, and no one will open your links without the thumbnail attached because they know, like, who knows what fresh hell you will send them next. And you've gained that reputation, and now no one clicks on your bullshit.
I know.
And you don't, I mean, like, you have to take an extra step to remove a thumbnail. So if you send me a link and the thumbnail is not there, you have taken the extra step of removing it, which means that whatever I'm stepping into
Well, hold on. That's not
is
always
going to
true.
be upsetting.
That's not always true. There are times I get real excited with what I'm going to send you, and then I click it or I paste it in. I hit send before the thumbnail generates. That is a real thing that happens. Not all the time, but it does happen. So just to be fair, and everybody's honest in this
Also,
conversation.
which requires extra effort to move extra speedy, with extra haste
not
to
that
click the
not
button.
that speedy. I mean, Control V Enter is like if I'm
Mm.
on a computer, that shit goes
Right.
fast, man. If I'm on my phone, it's
Oh, well,
slower.
when you put it that way, then I'll just start clicking on every thumbnail list link you send me.
Please do.
I didn't realize that happens. Yeah. I mean, even other people are like, even like Sudeep knows now, and I'm not even sure why he knows that.
You
But I'm
must
like,
have
have you
told
been
him.
like,
You must have
have
told
you
him.
been Justined, with these links? And even he's like, you'll send me a thumbnail of this link, and I'll just respond with no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
period.
it upsets me. But that being said, it hasn't happened where I've sent you one and I've said, no. This is good. This is legit. And I haven't sent you one where it was that type of a trick. It's always, I try to catch you when you're not expecting it. And if you click it, it's usually on you. You know it's your own fault. You're like, fuck.
Sometimes, I mean, look, sometimes I'm curious.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm curious.
Just checking in on how I'm doing mentally. And then you're
Listen,
like, that is silly.
You sent one and you called it, like, I think you're like, it was well placed because we were talking about maybe Deadpool Wolverine or something like that. And you're like, I can't believe they spoiled this in the movie, and you had like an Instagram reel or some shit. We won't talk about the video itself. We can't just for to spare our listeners.
I have a very sick sense of humor. And keep
You
in
do.
mind, it's not like
You're
It's
sick,
never
man.
anything like really like it's not pornographic.
I mean, it's on
not
it's I mean, it's on
violent.
YouTube. It's on Instagram.
It's on
It's not
Instagram. Yeah,
like
it's
it's
nothing.
not.
It's nothing
Yeah,
really
yeah,
bad. It's honestly.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not that sick.
No, it's
I just have a very sick
just
sense of humor.
confusing sometimes. It's just puzzling.
That's what I go for. That's my
Sometimes
jam.
sometimes
I want
sometimes it's upsetting. You know, like some people find it funny, and like some people find it find it upsetting. But that particular one was like, oh, like I felt like I ran just fucking face first into it because I wasn't thinking, and I clicked it, and just as it was loading up, like I was kind of thinking like there was no thumbnail. I'm like, just before it started playing, I'm like, oh, I'm fucking in for it now. Whatever I've stepped in it, and I'll be scraping this shit off of the shoes of my mind for at least another week. You know,
and that's why that functionality overall is overrated, because it's really just because now that I have to hide those, everybody's
on to you.
Everybody's on to me.
I get it. I mean, I get it. Like if you're, I get the frustration. I really do.
It's like a rating system with links that I send. It's like if I send the thumbnail, like this is probably PG, maybe PG-13. No thumbnail, could be rated R. Who knows?
It could be. We don't know. Cool. All right. So that's what you. So what is it you find overrated is the need for people to see thumbnails that have taken the surprise of the video out of the equation. And you know what? As like a normal functioning human being, like myself, which like you're not. I think you're operating at a weird frequency.
Yeah.
But like as a normal functioning human being, sometimes I do want to send stuff and be like, you got to check this out, but don't look at the thumb because it kind of ruins what it is. Absolutely. I think in that state, when you're being sincere and not trying to, mentally scar people. Yeah. Like I absolutely think that's a good, I think we're in a state right now. I'm gonna get on this soapbox for a real quick minute. We're in a state where we just have to know everything up front.
Yeah.
We're in an upfront state.
Like,
before we were always in the dark, and that's about everything. And we're talking about movies here, and no doubt, how long have we been hearing about the movie that we're going to review today, that we're going to go over today, right? How much coverage has there been? How much?
Too much.
Yeah, it's been a lot, man. It's been a lot. Every movie has a tremendous amount of coverage, spoilers, all this kind of stuff coming out before them. It's like we just need to know. Nobody steps into something without knowing or seeing or like being like, there's very little surprise, and that's another form of it. Is that thumbnails like, oh, okay, that's what this thing is.
Exactly. It got to a point too where like even before that, like if I was sending like messages and it was just a link, the thing that always bugged me was that you get the YouTube video with the description at the top.
Yeah.
And all that I just kind of want it to just be a black screen just with the video. So it just like,
so you don't see the title. Exactly. So you don't see the like, like I when I'm showing like a Shagu a trailer or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you showing me? I'm like, okay, don't look. Like I won't like actually go through the thing of like, don't look at the title.
Yeah.
Like I'll hit play, make sure everything's off the screen. I'm like, okay, check this out. Like I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
On that front.
Yeah.
But using it for your questionable purposes,
bit of a dick move, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we really got into that one. But
I was thinking about it earlier today because you brought it up, and I was like, what are some?
Yeah.
I've got some other things too. I got a really stupid one, but we'll do that another time.
We'll do
Not that this one was, markingly intelligent, but it was there.
Got another one. You got another one. It's pretty stupid. I'm like, I don't know. This one's up there.
As opposed to what, the profound thing we just talked about now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shut up, Justin. This whole conversation
overrated.
Was sent with a fucking no thumbnail attached to it. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Overrated. I don't know. I just saw this guy on something. I don't know I saw an ad or I don't know what it was. But Snoop Dogg. I think he's overrated. Yeah,
really?
I'm just not a big. I don't think he's awful.
Yeah,
like I don't think he's bad. I just don't understand the universal appeal Snoop Dogg. I find
Like as a personality, an artist, like what?
everything.
Everything.
Like every aspect is like
Hmm.
I just find his I find you know I find his art, like his musical output, to be okay.
Yeah,
Like if
yeah,
I were to
yeah.
compare him to there are other rappers I love so much more. I think a lot of people hold like when he works with Dre, I think it's all Dre.
Yeah.
Like for me, like it's all the Doctor, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
and I feel like usually his verse is the one I just want to skip. Like I just kind of wish that wasn't like it just kind of it's not, again, it's not bad. It's just more of like I'm flabbergasted by like his universal appeal, and like when he appears on talk shows as like an Olympic correspondent, and now he's on like apparently he's on ads for that Solo Stove now.
Oh.
He's just everywhere,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
He's a brand, right? He's his own
he's
brand.
he's a
Absolutely.
brand, but I find his brand to be kind of like boring and underwhelming. I think that's kind of I'm maybe I'm not as on, but I enjoy hip hop. I grew up on it, like in the 90s. That was their time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was their time, and I listened to all the tracks, but like and I love Dre. I think Dre's amazing. He's super talented. I think he elevates everyone he produces,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And I think he elevated Snoop, like in my opinion. I don't know. I think he's just okay. He's just okay, man. I don't get hyped up. Like if Snoop were to show up at a concert, if I were at a concert and Snoop came out and did a verse, like that would do, like, other than the novelty, like that would do nothing for me.
Really?
I guess yeah.
I
I
mean,
wouldn't really be excited.
So Snoop's never been like my favorite rapper of all time or anything like that.
Yeah.
He's always been like, if he's doing a verse or something like that, I'm invested in that to some degree. But, if you got him on a track with Dre, with Eminem, with 50 Cent even, because I think that they've collaborated on at least a few things especially around when I was listening to hip hop more.
Yeah.
Yeah, his was usually not my favorite of the things, but he's got a whole, like, to coin a term I hate using because I feel like I'm too fucking old to use it, but he's got a vibe to him, right? Like there's a certain kind of like flow to how he raps that even though it might not be the best lyrics, it connects and it just kind of mellows you out. Like that's the thing. He is the human embodiment of mellow. And that's what I connect with, and I kind of like that's why I like he brings a uniqueness that really is his own, and people have replicated and kind of modified to some degree, but that's his thing, right? So I kind of like that's why I find that's kind of his. That's why I wouldn't say he's overrated. And the thing that actually I like more now is he seems genuinely interested in shit and just likes to have a good time and have fun and try and recognize and boost up others. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I've seen him in talk shows talking about, like, I can't remember. But let me go with something that I know I've seen for sure instead of just making some shit up. But like his correspondence at the Olympics, and I'm sure he got paid a fucking boatload of money to do it.
Oh yeah, no question. Yeah.
But the thing is like when you see what he's doing and some of the stuff he does with like Martha Stewart, it seems very genuine. It seems to come from a good place, and I like that. Sure. Like he seems like a very warm and genuine person. When you see him interacting with like fans, or like if he's on a talk show with other people and he's interacting with the other people, he doesn't feel manufactured or disingenuine like The Rock, right? Like The Rock feels like a manufactured product every time you see him. Snoop feels like a brand, but it's his brand, and it doesn't he's exactly what he wants to be and isn't trying to be anything for anybody else. That's him. Right. That's what he wants to do. He wants to get paid.
I think that's been late in his later career.
Yes.
Like I don't think he's always been like that. And maybe that's something that I remember where there was, I feel like, I don't know. Like it's hard to explain, but I was just kind of like, it's just the ubiquitous of his nature of his brand. I was just like, I didn't really realize it before until I saw it. I'm like, I don't think he really does anything for me. And suddenly sort of like realizing it about myself, you know, like
Yeah.
he did the Super Bowl like a couple years back with that big like 90s like reunion.
Oh,
Was
they
that
all
like
did. Yeah. All the
yeah. So but I
yeah.
mean like I just like I didn't really care about him. Like I guess about some of the other folks I was into, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just kind of like I was kind of waiting for his part to be over.
It's fair.
I
I
don't know.
mean, it's
Yeah.
fair. Like his if you don't like his hip hop, that's gonna mar you in one way or another with him. Like I said, he was never my favorite rapper, but
Yeah.
like, you know, I never skipped a track that he was on. Just sometimes I might be like
Yeah.
on to the next one. Like I'd like to hear the next part of the song, but
Yeah.
especially when he started doing all the Izzo shit. Like when it was everything when he kept on adding syllables to things with Z's attached to them, I'm like,
oh man,
let's not do that.
Not my thing.
That was not my thing. No, I did
just
not like that.
Couldn't take it.
Yeah.
Couldn't take it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know that a lot of people listen to this podcast to listen to two old people talk about hip-hop.
The good old days?
The
good old days in hip hop back in my day.
But let's jump in, or do we want to talk about something else, or are we going to jump into we should probably jump into Romulus.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
All right, yeah. All right, so let's do some non-spoilery thoughts.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
For Romulus.
Oh shit. I almost just
Justin
died. Yeah, hi. How are you?
How did you feel, and where were you when you first saw?
I was two seats down from you. I was next to
what?
You. What? I was wait, when you said where was I when I watched
Yes,
yeah, I was two seats down from you. Don't do that to me. It was two seats down from you. We were at Scotiabank Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And we caught the Saturday show, and it was a nice day. And I was very anxious because, as we've detailed on this podcast many a times, the later entries in the Alien franchise have been steaming piles of dog shit, in my opinion, and I stand by that. And I was worried that this would be falling into the same category.
Just adding to the pile, just like
adding
a dog
to the pile,
shitting
right
on
the top of the
large pile.
Because here's the thing: is if you're at the top of the dog shit pile or the bottom, doesn't matter. You're still dog shit.
Yeah.
So, that was not my experience with this film. This film was, I would say, arguably the third best in the franchise. Maybe not even arguably. Like, I would put it over 3 and Resurrection almost easily.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other two I just don't think are as strong of movies. Where the latest two not being Romulus, what is it, Prometheus and Covenant, the two things that really bother me about those films was the fact that I always claim that it's very lazy writing when you just have people making really poor decisions that are completely out of character, one. And two, when you throw in such an ensemble cast of characters that it's very hard to actually give a shit about anybody, or at least a good number of them, that they're just kind of fodder and kind of wasted screen time for some of these people. Romulus doesn't suffer from any of that. I think that everybody has a place. Everybody has earned screen time. I felt connected to everyone in different ways, some positive, some negative, and that's by design based on their character. Oh, I just had lights turn off in here. Jesus Christ. And yeah, I mean, the creature effects were what the overall, the movie looked fantastic, sounded fantastic. I was blown away. I was actually very, very happy with this movie from start to finish. One minor kind of gripe that I think everybody's basically complaining about anyway, but we'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts coming out of it? Actually, let me ask that a different way. Sure. What were your initial thoughts briefly coming out of it the first time, and had anything changed for you coming out of it the second time?
That's a good question, because the first time, first of all, the experience watching it the first time on the Saturday, so it was the Saturday that it came out.
Yes.
The week it's opening weekend. Scotiabank Theater is like, I guess, like kind of the premier Cineplex downtown Toronto, right in there. I reached out to a few people to say, hey, like, it's, a new Alien movie for me is a pretty big deal. Like, I think for me, that's up there with like the way some people feel about a new maybe a new DC movie, maybe not the last few DC movies, but like or like a new Marvel film back in its heyday. When I say heyday, I mean like not to say anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when people, I can't remember the last time I've gone to see a film opening weekend. And it very rarely happens, even for stuff that I'm excited about. But a new Alien film it's a big deal for me. Went to see Prometheus, went to see went to see Covenant, like as soon as I could.
Yeah.
When they open. This series holds a very special place in my heart. I have watched every entry of this franchise. I mean, the first 4 just burned holes in those DVDs when I have them. I own 4 different sets of like all of them. The last one being the Blu-ray Legacy set. I own the quadrilogy like pack that like opens up and keeps opening, like just like just keeps opening up, and there's like 9 discs in there or whatever. And I watched all the special features, everything I could get my hands on there. So I kind of want to set the context here. I am a massive Alien fan, and I think with Covenant, like we have a review for Covenant on the show, and it's pretty funny, and people should dig it up and listen to it. It is, Justin, you and I, we definitely disagree on a lot of. It was or disagree. I think you just the parts that we agreed were not very good. You were
appalled.
unwilling, like. to like basically just you hated those more than I did, the parts of the movie that we disliked.
Yes.
But also, I mean, there are parts that I like that you didn't like. Anyway, go check it out. It's a funny episode. It's a lot of arguing, a lot of so yeah, it's just setting the context. Big Alien fan. Went to see the movie, and it turned out usually I send out an invite, and I'm just kind of like, hey, I'm doing this thing, I'm gonna go check out Alien. Like, I'll invite people who are kind of like sort of like-minded, who have maybe expressed interest in this type of film before. And we ended up rolling 7 deep to this movie. Can you remember the last time you've gone to a film with 7 people?
Transformers, the movie with you and the cousins.
Oh God, yeah. The 80s. Oh, Transformers,
baby.
The movie, the 80s,
the animated,
the animated Transformers film.
We were all adults at this point. This wasn't in 1986. They re-released it in theaters for a bit, and we all went to the theaters to go and watch it and relive our childhoods.
Yeah, that was great. It was mostly like a sing-along.
It was, yeah.
Oh yeah. That's probably the last time. That's probably the last time I've been to a movie that with more than like one other person. So first of all, that was a big difference, like going to see a movie. And I know you didn't know everyone that was there, but I knew everyone that was there. And I had a friend come in from New York, and he happened to be there, and I'm like, we're going to see this movie. He's like, yeah, I'm coming. I'm like, oh fuck, like we're just this group keeps getting larger and larger. So we bought out like almost like a whole row of the theater. We had 7 people there, and it's not almost a whole row, but a significant portion of it. And so that was just really cool. It was really cool to go see a movie with a bunch of friends. And just hadn't done it before in such a long time. So anyway, that's one. So that was the first time we saw it. I came out of that, and I was pretty positive about the movie. A lot of the things you already pointed out that I agree with. For me, the biggest strength of this film is how it looks and sounds. Like, bottom line for me, and I this is going to sound a little harsh, but like this, I felt like this for so long. I'm like, we are so conditioned to watch films, or anything we watch is so driven by the effects, and it looks so fake that we have lowered our standards. Like, audiences have all lowered their standards to say, yeah, it looks fake, but it's eye candy.
Yes.
It's, it looks fake, but ooh, look at that. Like it's, and this was so, it was so accentuated by this, because just before we went to see Romulus, and I don't want to pick on this movie, but like it just, because they were in such close proximity, like Shagu had turned on Doctor Strange in the Mouth of Madness. I mean, In the Mouth of Madness. No, what's that movie called?
The
Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange in the Mouth of Madness would be a hell of a thing. But yeah, and I watched the beginning of that movie, and I'm just like, it's heartbreaking in two ways. One is that Sam Raimi is the director, and I don't see him anywhere in that movie except for very small moments.
Yeah.
Right. And then in that film, the opening, it's just fake CG. Everything is fake, dude.
Yeah.
Like it looks so fake, and a lot of big tentpole movies look like that. And I don't know. Maybe people like it. They like the way that looks. They like the way that sounds. But they've accepted the fact that this is how movies are, and that always saddens me. I'm always like watching the movie. I'm like, this just doesn't look great. Doesn't look real.
Standards are lower, basically.
Yeah, Alien Romulus looks like every movie should be shot like this.
Yeah.
Every single movie needs to be made like Alien Romulus, because every set was built. And I was watching a whole bunch of interviews after this. I'm like, why do I feel the way I feel when I was watching Romulus? Why did I feel so invested? Why did I feel like I was there?
Right.
How was there so much depth to these? Why did I feel like, of course there was practical effects, and we'll get to that in a minute. But he was like, even in his interviews, Fede Alvarez, is it Fede or Fede? Do you know?
I would have said Fede.
I feel like not pronouncing his name right, because the guy's done such a fucking miraculous job here visually. Like, he was like, oh, we built the sets and then we built ceilings.
I think it's Fede. Fede Alvarez.
Fede.
Okay.
Yeah. And one thing he said was like, nobody builds ceilings on sets anymore. Nobody does it.
Yeah.
Because it's just way easier to do the lighting and stuff. He's like, we built complete sets with ceilings.
Yes. Yeah.
And you wouldn't think that that's like a big deal, because you're never like all like, kind of like tilting upwards or whatever. But that, combined with the lighting, combined with all of the practical effects, combined with the way they recorded the audio and the dialogue and the sound editing, this movie looks and feels real.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like such a breath of fresh air to me.
Yeah.
Like, I watched it, I was just like, I could breathe, even though like the movie is very intense and claustrophobic. Like, I was just like soaking it all in.
Yeah.
It was real. It wasn't this floaty CG like alien kind of like crawling on the walls with no weight to it, or it wasn't an ooey gooey like super fast moving creature that was so unbelievably fast. You know what? Okay. Sorry, I'm going on a crazy tangent here, but just give me 1 second. You know what? I love a good creature feature, and I love creature design. We all know this. One of the things I very much dislike is when the creatures move so fast.
Yeah.
They move so fast, and they animate them so fast because they really want to show how fast and deadly they are.
Yeah.
But always at the last second, something gets in the way of between the creature and the heroine or the hero.
Yeah.
That stops them from like chomping on them.
Yeah.
Like, just at the last second, it could be a staircase, it could be like an elevator door closing, it could be like they trip on something. They're like, it's always throwing something in their face to like slow them down.
Yeah.
Like watch any movie. And I've always hated that. It's like, this creature, you've already lost my investment because this feels a little too Looney Tunes for me. It's like, this creature moves so fast, this person should be dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, already. Like, should have gotten to them already. Try not to make it so unbelievably fast. They're always pushing that,
Yeah.
In this movie, the aliens don't move like that. They are fast and they're nimble, right? But they're still bound by physics.
Yes.
And that's such a big deal for me. And that's why the Alien franchise is so great, because they have a serious dedication to practical effects and practical sets. But I think what Fede's done here is really, really, like, the filmmaking is top notch, and it's so thoughtful. All the CG is thoughtful.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even notice. You're sucked in, and that's its strongest thing. I drink that movie up whenever I'm watching it. And the sound editing is out of control. Like, out of control.
Yes.
The sound editing is so cool.
Yeah.
Everything sounds amazing. It's an aggressive track. they use positional audio.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's kind of the visual part. I love the fact that they're young actors in this movie. It really changes things up. I know some people don't like this cast. I love this cast. I think this cast is great. I think everyone does a great job in this. I think, they don't have to be likable, but they feel real.
Well, I mean, a not likable character can be because they're a shitty character or the actor is shitty, or that character is shitty and you're not supposed to like them. You're supposed to actively be rooting against them. And I think they fucking nailed that for one of the characters. Everybody else was kind of...
don't remember the names.
Well, I'd have to have them in front of me, but you know who I'm talking about, that one character. Yeah. So, I think, I mean, I don't know. I think they nailed it, man. I think they fucking nailed this one.
So I do have one huge problem with this movie. Okay. And we're going to talk about that. It's the same thing. The callbacks, I was worried very much going into the film that the callbacks were going to be dominant, and there are a lot. Yeah. And I was very close. I think the callbacks are what holds this movie back, in my opinion. So I saw it first time. I saw it again yesterday. And the second time I saw it, so much more clicked into place. The way Fede has, and he co-wrote this as well. They do the world building here. Yeah. It is, I love it. Chef's kiss, man. Because it's so subtle and so well written, you're not even realizing that they're setting stuff up for later. Yes. You don't even realize that that's happening. Yeah. The only thing you realize is that there is one lady, woman in the movie, and it's revealed later, it's not a huge spoiler, that she's pregnant and everyone's happy for her or whatever. I'm like, that's the only thing where I'm like, things aren't going to go well. Yeah. If you're pregnant in an Alien film, you're in the wrong movie, sweetheart. Yeah, your goose is cooked. But that was the only one where I was like, I think one of our crew had a great name for it. They called it Chekhov's fetus. I don't know if you know. Do you know this concept of Chekhov's gun? No. This idea. Chekhov's gun is a term that's used for, and I can't remember where exactly or what film it's from, but it's when a film shows you a loaded gun on a table or whatever. It means that they're setting up that someone's going to grab the gun and use it. So when films set stuff up, they show you a thing and you're like, why are they showing me this thing? Yeah. It's likely because they're going to be using it later. So that the idea is called Chekhov's, they call it Chekhov's gun. Gotcha. He called it Chekhov's fetus. As soon as you find out that this lady's pregnant, you're like, oh boy, that's not going to go well. But yeah, so the only thing that holds this movie back from being its big weird self are the callbacks, and there are a lot of them, and it kind of bugs me. But I think the movie does a good job of contextualizing the callbacks in a way where it doesn't feel cheap. Yeah. For example, I don't know if you ever saw Ghostbusters, the sequel to Afterlife, Frozen. I watched it on a plane the other Empire. On the way back from the UK. Yeah, I saw that movie. Is all callbacks. I could barely get through it. I just couldn't. It just felt so empty of its own ideas. Felt empty of its own ideas. Yeah. I think Romulus has lots of unique ideas, but I think it feels like it needs to adhere to continuity. I think, and you know me, I'm continuity, I think is not my favorite thing. I don't get caught up in continuity typically, except for Rogue One, which I think is just the worst. It's just, that's the only time where I'm like, okay, I think continuity really does matter here, because the next frame of this scene is the first scene in A New Hope, and you guys just mangled this. Let's just do another fucking. We talked about Rogue One. We're gonna get into that shortly, but I don't want to hear about this goddamn movie again and your dislike. Anyway. Lord Vader is the Lord of all Vaders. Now, okay, all right. So let me wrap up here with non-spoilery. I have problems with this film because of strictly due to the callbacks. That's where my problems lie. And I, normally we don't talk about ratings when we talk about movies here, but out of 5, I gave this a 3.5, but it's a very strong 3.5. If I were to compare the way I feel about this movie is the way I feel about Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel has problems. Yes. But I love Man of Steel because it tries to do something very different. And I know it has its problems. And I know this movie has its problems with the callbacks, in my opinion. there is a fan edit of this movie that I could fix that problem, those problems. And when I watched it the second time, I was doing the editing in my head, in real time, where I'm like, oh, this could totally work. Like we could get rid of these things and it wouldn't, there's a way to get around them and it wouldn't matter, and that would easily take it to a 4 or 4.5 star film for me. But that does hold it back. So
That's
yeah,
fair.
those are my sort of general feelings.
Okay.
So one last thing I'll say is that the hard sci-fi works really well too. It mixes in the hard science fiction stuff, like the big expansive visuals of space, this like the rings of Saturn, just beautiful stuff, and then down into the nitty gritty claustrophobic, kind of like macro and micro all working together to really build this world. And I think when it's being itself, when it's being unique and focusing on its own unique themes, what it does with the android character Andy, I loved all of it. I really loved that stuff. Thematically, I think it absolutely works. But yeah, so those are my general thoughts. Like the callbacks are what holds it back, I think.
I wasn't bothered by them as much, but I'd like to hear kind of which ones specifically were a bother to you. So
yeah.
All right.
So let's jump into some spoilerific discussions. So okay, do we want to? I'd love to go through the plot. You want to just like?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's do that. So, opening of the film, complete silence.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Oh, amazing. That's where like they lingered on silence to a point where I started getting uncomfortable, thinking I started feeling uncomfortable, and then I mentally realized how I was feeling as a result of the complete absence of sound and thought it was fucking brilliant. They had the Stones to really linger on that for longer than I think felt comfortable, and that's where my discomfort came from. And they did that throughout the film at other times too. Like I found that like there were certain times where I would notice the absence of music in the dialogue or lack thereof, and it was just like very, very quiet or just completely quiet. The quiet of this film, especially it being a space film, I felt to be almost like a character in and of itself of the movie. It helped kind of narrate and really put the audience in the place of where they were, which would be obviously not a great place to be given the whole situation. But yeah, no, it worked for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I thought it was great. I thought it was great opening on silence and having this kind of shadow. Something's blocking out the stars, and then the lights turn on this salvage. Like I guess this is what they call Wayu. I love that. Like they even have like shorthand for Weyland-Yutani now. Like these workers, they call it a Wayu ship.
Yeah,
kind of. This is a very Jaws 2 opening for me. I love, and I love Jaws 2, right? This is like those divers diving and going to the orca and taking pictures of the orca underwater and being attacked by the shark in Jaws 2. As soon as you see that they're salvaging the wreckage of the Nostromo, which is the ship that blew up in the first film, I'm like, oh, this is giving me like Jaws 2 vibes. This is not the only sequel to a monster movie that I love that this movie pays homage to. And I will say pays homage to. They probably we're not thinking of this at all, but to me, I was like, yeah, Jaws 2. I see it. So they're salvaging what they end up finding is the alien, the xenomorph from the first Alien, in this kind of like cocoon thing floating in space.
Yeah.
And this is where like I love the hard sci-fi stuff where they kind of like catch it in the hangar. Like it's floating and they kind of have to match its speed and they catch it in the hangar. That comes back again later because they do the same thing for the cryopods. And I'm like, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm loving this stuff already. They cut this bugger open. They take the corpse of the alien out. And then we smash. I think we hit the credits. We hit the credits for Alien Romulus there, and then we jump over to a planet. I can't remember what it was. Jackson something. A Weyland-Yutani colony. And what did you think of this like sequence where they kind of introduce this idea of indentured workers, like these workers that are like just working for Weyland-Yutani, and they have to keep working until they're allowed to travel wherever they like, kind of earning the ability to be able to travel. What do you what do you make of this whole sequence where you were introduced to our main character, Rain, I believe is her name,
Rain.
and Andy the android?
It was so earlier when I was talking about you feel connected to a lot of these characters. They introduced both Rain and Andy as very sympathetic and very sweet characters just out of the gate. Like you just feel like they're telling silly dad jokes. They're being kind of like they just look nice. They look like they should be, treated well, and you want them to be treated well.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, they're in a miserable planet that gets zero sunlight. It's always dark out there. The air is terrible. People are dying left and right from fucking like, black lung or whatever they're getting in those mines over there. Speaking of mines,
you're getting black lung just talking about it.
And they did such a good job with her building up this hope that she's going to get off. She served her time.
Yeah.
She's ready to go. Like she's got her papers ready. She's ready to get off. And they just say, fuck you. You're here for another, what was it, like 12 years or something like that?
No, they doubled it.
They doubled
like,
it, yeah.
Like I saw like it's maybe I think it's a credit to, the makers of this film that they set this environment up. It's so real.
Yes.
It feels so real and it looks amazing. And I bought into it. And as soon as I saw that counter double, like my heart kind of broke.
Exactly.
Just like watching that. Yep. And I'm like, oh, this movie's already got me.
Yeah.
Like it's already like,
and
it's already got me.
That's all a credit to the actress who played Rain. And that's all a credit to the actor that played Randy as well. So that's Andy. Sorry, what did I say?
Yeah. Randy.
Sorry, Andy.
Yeah.
That's David Johnson and Kaylee Spaney. Spaney.
Yeah.
I like you don't feel that badly for characters that you don't feel a connection with. And at that point, we'd only been with them for maybe just a few minutes, but enough for them to convey the type of character that they are. With something like that happening to them too, you're just like, motherfucker. And I mean, it goes from that to they hook up with Tyler and Kay, Bjorn and Navarro, which that feels like a callback. Navarro, is that another alien character, Navarro, or I might be just making that up?
No.
But anyways, and then they meet up with them, and there's this. Basically, it's a heist. It's like we got to go and heist these cryo these things for these cryopods for our ship, and then we're gonna go get the fuck out of here. And it's a hard plan, or it seems simple, but it seems daunting. Like to me, my first thought was like, you can just go into space like whenever you want.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I felt like no clearance, nothing.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Because they can't actually go anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they can't actually make it anywhere. Because they don't have any tech to allow them to cryosleep.
Right.
So they're just gonna, like they can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that too. I'm like, he just takes off, and I'm like, I'm just kind of like, is anybody like? It's not like it was a quiet takeoff either.
Yeah.
It was like a fucking loud.
People were looking like, where are these fucking guys going? What do they know?
But he also mentioned, see, this is the thing when I watched it the second time, all of these details that were so well thought out, in my opinion. Like he even says the reason they detected that is because they were collecting something.
Yeah.
And so they were already on these missions. Like they're already doing that stuff and using the ship. And then later you see that they have a payload.
Yes.
Like they have a payload of stuff that they've mined,
Yeah, exactly.
So it all sort of, it checks out. I think.
Yeah. Their motivations were all sound. The risks seemed very low for them at the time, right? Like everything just, assuming everything clicks the way that they had thought, if the cryo chambers had sufficient coolant or whatever they were calling it, fuel, let's call it.
Yep.
If all that clicked, they could have done whatever the hell they wanted. It would have been great.
So just to explain kind of what that situation is that so Kaylee Spenny and the android Andy meet up with these other characters, and she has a relationship with them already. But some of them, they're like family, like their brother and sister, and the other guy's a cousin. Yeah. And is Navarro the shaved, lady with the shaved head? So it's got to be a callback to Alien 3. Like I feel like there's got to be something there. And there's a bunch of callbacks that have already happened here, right? We've already got the bar sign from like Aliens, you know, like the colony, like the flashing bar sign.
Mhm.
We've got the little like from Alien, the little bird that kind of like drinks the water or whatever, kind of tilts back and forth. They make a comment about the cornbread,
Yeah, I
like
did
from
catch the
Aliens, and she
cornbread.
didn't
Yeah.
like the cornbread either.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, so all these callbacks, like there's tons of stuff that's happened already.
Yeah.
None of this was. It's totally fine for
Yeah,
me.
they're
I'm like,
just little
it's
Easter
a
eggs that
little
if you weren't
tidbit.
indoctrinated into the alien mythos as we are, we probably wouldn't have noticed. And it doesn't affect the film one way or another.
No, those are I like, I enjoy those as much as
Yeah.
the next person, and
Little
you know,
pepper.
we're kind
Just a little
yeah, we
pepper.
haven't really hit anything yet that I've found egregious.
Mhm.
But don't worry, we're getting there.
Yeah.
So the idea is that they've detected this derelict ship, what they think is a ship. They need the cryo tubes, and they need cryo fuel to go into cryosleep to reach a planet that they're trying to reach. So what they're going to do, the heist portion of this film, is they're like, hey, we're going to go up there, we're going to board this Weyland-Yutani derelict ship, and we're going to take the cryo tubes, and we're just going to fly off into space, go to cryosleep, and 8-9 years later, we're going to end up at the planet that we're going to be at, and we're going to be free of Weyland-Yutani.
Yes.
They need her because they need Andy, because between her and Andy, he's like, Andy being the android is a surrogate brother to her, and she treats him like a human being, like her brother. She treats him like her brother, but he is a Weyland-Yutani android and has clearance to actually like bypass, not bypass, but actually
He can
open
interface
the
directly
doors
with the mother AI.
That's what they say, that specifically he can interface directly with Mother, which is the name of the computer on the ship. So that's kind of the setup, and you get a little bit of background on all of these characters, and basically off they go. They take off, and they do a whole bunch of cool stuff. Like they dock with the ship. I think the ship looks amazing. They realize it's not a ship. They realize that it's actually a very large station.
Yes.
Like it's a station.
Yeah.
They airlock, they wear coats because it's cold in there. Air is
Yeah.
not breathable. Andy's there. Now, Andy's been played as kind of this also got me right at the beginning, is that Andy is like, he's almost like a special needs.
Yes.
Like he's like something's happened to him. Like I think they say that her father kind of rewrote his code or whatever in his prime directive and stuff, but he's kind of like, he's a bit like a broken android.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically. And I think that's and like what a novel idea. I was just so into that. I'm like, what are they going to do with this? I'm so excited, and a lot of these movies, they deal with androids, a lot of the Alien films, and they always do something different.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is no different. It does something very unique here. I believe this relationship. I think that the way it evolves is so important to the success of this film, and I bought into it. Like I think that they're both played this incredibly well, and Andy basically has to do like almost like two different versions of himself in this movie, and it's fantastic. I think it's so cool, done really well.
Yes.
So they get onto the station, they open up the doors, and they walk through, and you discover one guy hates androids because they made a decision to save many miner workers by sacrificing several, and one of those that was sacrificed was this guy's mom.
That's right.
And these basically are all orphans. Everyone has died through some kind of catastrophe, with mining, getting sick. So they're really emphasizing how awful it is. Like, colonization is not clean and easy. It's dirty, it's dangerous. So they get on the ship, they're exploring the ship, and they're looking for the cryo. So this is the stuff that really works for me. They look for the cryo tubes. They open up the cryo tubes. They're like, this is great. It's like, oh, you know what? The cryo tubes don't have enough cryo fuel for 9 years. They only have it for 3 years.
Right.
Wicked. Okay, we found cryo fuel somewhere else in the station. Let's go get that. In the meantime, I'm going to send these cryo tubes out so the ship can catch them, and then they have this sequence of the ship catching them. And I'm like, oh, this is all just like, I love these mechanics, dude. I love these mechanics.
It's all well thought out. Every action leads to the next action in a logical and well thought out manner. People aren't stupid. People aren't doing things out of character. Everything is everything is being done like a person would do in these circumstances. And that was characteristic of Alien as well as Aliens. Like, if you look at what those guys were doing, they were acting like people. And that's why I find that you're most connected to those people or those characters in those films. It's when things start getting a little batty or a little loony is where you're like, this is weird, or at least for me.
Yeah. So I totally agree. This is the kind of stuff I totally eat up, and it played even better the second time because I caught even more of the details.
Yeah.
Now there is a weird thing about the dialogue in this film. Like, some of it was unintelligible. Like, to me, the first time around, I couldn't really hear it. I think that it was a mix of how they recorded it, because apparently they tried to mimic analog recording of dialogue. But they also there's heavy accents in here, and in particular, the character who dislikes androids, who's kind of played up to be a bit of a jerk in the movie, but he's not a full jerk. Like, he has a reason that he doesn't trust, these synthetics, right?
That character,
but he has got quite a heavy accent, and it was
distracting.
very difficult.
Yeah, at times I didn't find myself struggling too much with him.
Oh, really? Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I kind of picked up everything he was putting down, but like, it was, I was actively listening. I had to actively listen. Otherwise, I absolutely would have lost track of the shit that he was saying sometimes. It just didn't.
Yeah.
He also didn't say anything very profound, so I might have actually missed something and just didn't give a shit.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, we're going to go look for the cryotubes. In the meantime, this whole purging of gravity thing is set up where the gravity's turning on and off and on and off, but they turn the gravity on and they leave it on for most of the time. So now they're creeping through the ship, just, the dude, his cousin, and Andy, the android. And they get to a room and they're not really reading anything, and they're young, and they just want to escape. Like, they're not really reading the writing on the wall here of like what's going on. Although there isn't really, like, they're just missing it, and it seems organic. It doesn't seem dumb to me.
Agreed.
Like, they're so hyper focused. They're like, just give us the stuff and we got to get out of here.
That's
right.
it.
So they walk into this room that's got about like shin high water going on in this room, and they have the cryofuel cells or whatever there, and they start taking the cryofuel cells out. And as they start taking it out, the room goes into lockdown.
Yeah.
And that's because that room is where a bunch of facehuggers are sealed, and they're being cryogenically frozen, but they don't see them.
Right.
And they're stealing the cryo that is powering that. And as soon as they pull these cells out, the facehuggers all start to thaw out. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, this is hitting every center of my brain that loves this type of detail. It's always this type of thing that kind of bothers me about films sometimes, like about like the logic. And this movie sets up its own logic and it obeys its own logic. Like, that's what I hate. It's not that, it should work like this or it should work like that. It's more of like, if you're going to set up your own rules, follow them, right? Because that's what makes this fun. You can set up whatever rules you want, but just don't start breaking them all over the place, because you're losing the immersion, right?
Yeah.
This movie is definitely setting up its own rules, and it's executing on its own rules, and it's playing within the boundaries of the space that it's set up in really interesting ways. So they pull the cells, the facehuggers get thawed out, and we get our first kind of like this is our big creature moment.
Yeah.
What did you make? What did you make of this sequence of them being attacked by the facehuggers in the water in this room, this whole kind of like sequence of the facehuggers chasing them?
I thought it was great, man. I really like that. You know what? Like, anytime in past films, I felt if a facehugger was loosey-goosey around you, aside from the scene with Newton with Ripley, it was basically a death sentence. The characters are done. Too bad. If there's multiple in the room, good luck. You're done.
Yeah.
This one sort of set you up for that, but they actually went the other way, where these things they're fast, but they're kind of clumsy.
Yeah.
And they're not fast enough. They're not like a 99, mile an hour fastball.
Yeah.
These things, you can hit them out of the air pretty
Yeah.
regularly if you're, coordinated. And they did
Yeah.
that. Bjorn beat the
Swat it.
shit out of them. Yeah, just
Yeah.
kept swatting them away. And
That's great.
I thought it was brilliant. Like it was
Yeah.
actually really entertaining to see them hold their own against these things, which
Yes.
no one's really ever done. I thought it was
Yes.
great. The one thing that irks me is once they get out of that room,
Yeah.
and the shin high water adds a little bit of element to it. Oh, there was one thing I really loved. There was that one shot where the one crawls over Andy.
Oh yes.
And jumps
so
over.
good.
Oh, buddy, that was one of those, like, it wasn't a jump scare at all, but it was one of those things where it was unnerving. Like when you see that thing crawling over, because at that point Andy had frozen up because he had gotten that's something
chip.
we kind of skipped over, but they got locked
we're
in.
gonna get to that.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. Yeah.
At this point, they had been locked in the room. There was a little gap, but there was no other way to actually get them out of that locked up room. So they harvested this chip from another android that was there that was destroyed, but that chip was still active. They handed that to Andy, started rebooting, and was completely.
Oh, dude, when he goes into that mode where his hands are like this, and his Andy's eyes roll back, and the Weyland-Yutani image is on the on the back of the eyes. I was just like, oh god, this is so good.
Yeah,
like everything that's happening is so good, and I love they take Andy out of the equation in that room.
Yes, yeah, he's not a factor.
He's not a factor, so he's just standing there rebooting while the other two characters are being attacked by the facehuggers.
Yeah,
because the idea, if I feel like if Andy were there, he could actually
have
protect
helped
them.
Yes.
Yeah, he could protect them in a big way, and he does. Like, because when there's the one moment where that facehugger is about to land on the dude's face, who's lying in the water, and he grabs the tail, and it's such a good shot. I was just like, oh, so sick. And he comes back, and he's a total, like, I don't know, like, to be reductive, he's a total badass. He's a total smart ass too, right? Because now he has this new chip that's, and the way they explain that in the next scene is great. But sorry, back to this kind of action sequence. Like, anything else to say about this sequence?
Not about that sequence, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
I loved this sequence. It was fucking amazing. It was so, because no one's done this. Is unique. There's so many facehuggers. They're swimming in the water. They're crawling all over the place. Bjorn's like knocking them out of the air with his like space cattle prod, you know, and the way he gets, like, one's on his cousin's face, and he's like, and he just tases it, but he also tases his cousin, who falls into the water, just lying there. I'm like, all these elements are stacking and layering on top of each other. It's a fucking masterclass action scene, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Andy reboots.
Yeah.
Was that
real stakes to the whole thing too?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the desperation is so real.
Yeah.
It's so real. Like, where he's swatting them out of the air, and what's it called? Andy reboots with the new chip, and now when he goes to the door reader, he can actually open the door because he has clearance. Because now he's the mother thinks he's this science officer that was on board the ship, and they try to close the door, and then you get that crazy sequence of the facehuggers breaking through the glass and chasing them down the hallway, and they finally get the other door closed, but one makes it through, and the Navarro, I guess, turns around at the wrong moment. Boom, one gets attached to her face, and she's lying on the ground, and that's when things slow down, and Andy's cadence has changed, posturing has changed, and it's like, oh, I've been like, even my motor skills are being fixed. But they explain it so well, and it's one line of dialogue, and it's just beautiful when he's like, my knowledge hasn't been upgraded. So they make a distinction between, does he know more? No, he's just smarter and can make more conclusions based on what he's seeing.
Right. Yeah.
So he looks at Navarro, who's got the facehugger on the face, and he's like, oh, judging from the air, from her chest compressions and the compressions on the facehugger's feeding her oxygen.
Yes.
You have to be careful, because like it could cut her off if you try. It cut her air off if you try to take it off.
Yeah.
And then they have this crazy then they have this like discussion, and then they said, I can't help you, but we know someone who can. And this other synthetic who they took the chip from is there. They prop him up. And here's my biggest problem with the film.
Yeah.
It turns out to be the same model of synthetic from Alien, which in Alien on the Nostromo was named Ash. And this one he's called Rook.
Mhm.
But this is the most fucking hideous thing I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, it is grotesque. And I just I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And it was so, I don't know. I was at a loss for words. I was groaning when this came. First of all, when I saw him on the floor, I'm like, that's Ash. And I was like, I knew this was coming.
I was caught completely off guard. I didn't see that coming at all.
Oh yeah, like because of the way he was wearing, it was the blue shirt with the thing. I was like, oh fuck, it's gonna be Ash. God damn it. Anyway, so yeah, and it's this whatever they did like some prosthetics. They did some an actor that sort of looked like the late great Ian Holm, and then they I don't know, they used some fucking South Park animation and they threw that shit on there, and it was just, it's fucking grotesque. Like I hated it.
I don't think anybody likes it. I've seen a lot of like hate in comments and articles, and just people aren't digging it, and I hope they had permission from Ian Holmes. Like,
oh, they did.
estate.
Yeah, like I looked it up, and like Fetty has talked about it, and he said that they went to the family and they said, we really want to do this because it's so important to their to the legacy of Alien, and they really want to link to it.
Yeah.
And the family was okay with it. And so it's not even for that reason. I just feel like story-wise, this is not even needed. Like, it's just not.
It's not. I think it's I agree. It's not. I'm not even going to try and justify it actually being needed. I think it's nice. Like, I like the thought of it. I like seeing that continuity between the films. Your least favorite word, I'd imagine, but it's kind of neat. Like, and they've played with that before with different Bishop models.
So it would have been cool if it was Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if it was Bishop, like an early Bishop model?
A really early Bishop model? That would have been cool too.
They could have even like de-aged like Lance Henriksen if they wanted to. They've done it before.
Yeah.
But he's a living actor. The de-aging looks better. The de-aging looks better than whatever the fuck
they did there. Yeah.
This was.
It was just floating face. Yeah. It was not
when he was
done
talking,
well.
the lip syncing and like the inside of his mouth. Like, I don't know. I don't know what was going on.
My thing has always been like, if you're gonna do something like that, do it on like a robot type of character, because it's gonna work better than if it's a human being. And I was fucking wrong. This doesn't look good at all. I mean, granted, it is actually like extremely humanoid, but we were talking after the movie about like just ideas as to how to make that better, and they could have done that as a puppet. They could have done a lot of battle damage on top of it, where you could have made it look enough like Ian Holm to kind of get that continuity kind of like nod.
Yes.
But without the grotesque fucking shitty animation that they did. And it's not like, I don't know, I don't like saying it's shitty, because somebody worked really hard on that.
Oh, they did.
I could never do what they did. It looks good in still as well. The problem is once that guy starts moving, our brains go, nope, that is not a real face. That's not how people talk. That's not how eyes move, etc. And it's they tried, they did what they could, but to me, that's the wrong direction. It's always the wrong direction. It's reasons why I won't watch like The Irishman, and like I just don't like it when they full on just do something like that. It's just kind of grotesque.
Yeah, The Irishman is pretty distracting.
Yeah, distracting's the best word for it.
Yeah, it's distracting.
Yeah, you'd have to, if you're going to do something like that, you've got to do something on top of it as well, where that is window dressing and you're only seeing a small portion of it, or it's in a vein where it doesn't need to be hyper realistic. Like The Flash, for instance, they did, what they did with some of the characters, but it never felt like they were intending to be completely photorealistic. Close enough. Yep. So
that was another one. That's another movie that I think has some of this like uncanny valley sort of problem with some, but they don't have speaking parts. You know,
They
they
don't
don't
have speaking
have,
parts.
you know,
No.
this is more like Grand Moff Tarkin. Oh,
Yeah.
Rogue One. I didn't even honestly, I didn't even realize
didn't
that this was
catch
going
it?
to come
Yeah.
up again.
Yeah.
I just caught myself.
Because that was the first thing we all thought of after we started watching it. We're like, this is fucking Grand Moff Tarkin all over again.
Yeah.
And
I feel like Tarkin probably looked better. I haven't seen Rogue One since I saw it in the theater, but I should watch that scene again because I feel like nothing's improved.
I think it's worse. Like, I remember watching Tarkin the first time, and I was like, this is pretty good. And this one, I never had that feeling, not even for a second.
I think what they did for Luke in The Mandalorian was pretty bad. I thought that was bad. I thought this is on that level. But Luke doesn't have that many lines in that season, or whatever I saw. I think they did another season. He may have appeared there, but these are all living actors that they at least had a reference for, and they kind of, in watching it the second time, there are some wide shots where they have it's an animatronic, like it's a, and I'm like, oh, that looks great. Like, that looks great. It's just that when they square up portrait view of him and he's just like spouting lines of dialogue, I was like, oh my God, why?
Stop. Yeah. That is
so
definitely a biggest.
Having said all of that, logically, this makes sense in my mind. And it's not forced in the world in the universe of of Alien, because these are just synthetics. They're coming off of an assembly line. It would make sense that every ship has a required synthetic, and that synthetic is probably the science officer synthetic, and this is the model. So the fact that that model is on that station makes sense.
Yeah.
I just feel like they didn't need to do it.
No, they didn't need to, but like, it was the opportunity to do this was there, and it really fits the narrative. Like, you need some sort of an evil mastermind to kind of to kind of guide these rats through this maze and to seek to fit his own purposes. And without that, you're kind of screwed. And you've already got that guy in a repeatable process with Ash, with Rook, etc. So going down that road makes sense to me. But they could have done it differently. It didn't have to be Ash, and if they did, they could have done a better job.
There's a cut of this film, like we were talking about after, is that you can literally cut Rook out, like the physical Rook, like the bad shots of Rook, and maybe using voiceover, maybe cutting around it with just a little bit of voiceover, because he starts appearing on monitors later magically, which I think is another part of the movie that's maybe not bad, but I find it quite funny that you walk into a room and there's Bilbo Baggins on the monitor, like starts talking to you. I'm like, where did you come from? How'd you get here?
I'm okay with that. There's enough. If he's jacked into the system, there's enough surveillance throughout.
That was the other thing that I saw from the second time watching it. He crawls across the thing and actually plugs
himself in. Yeah, exactly.
To Mother.
Yeah.
Which is another thing I didn't, because I'm just like so.
He was a real motherfucker.
Horrified. Was that?
He's a real motherfucker, that guy. Just went right in there. Didn't even buy her a drink.
Yeah. Jacked into Mother. Anyways. Oh
dear. Oh dear. That was basically like a thumbnailless link I just sent you there, and you clicked it.
That's right. I didn't understand what you meant, and then it all hit me.
Sorry.
The other thing I noticed, I don't know if you realize this, but some of the open questions I had is like, why, like, maybe they got the xenomorph from the original film. This whole explanation he gives, I kind of like missed, because I was so horrified by what I was seeing that I wasn't really listening to what he was saying.
Yeah.
And in the second time I watched it, I listened to what he said, and it explained so much. Maybe not the best explanations, but it actually explained they got the creature.
Yeah.
And over 6 months or a year or something, they've been working with that creature, but it basically came back to life.
Yes.
And started, killing everyone on the station, and they were finally able to kill it, and they show it kind of up there, and then but it bled, and basically everyone on the ship died, and Rook had to seal off the ship. So all of these things check out. He says that. But there's one line that I missed, because if they got the xenomorph from the original Alien, that xenomorph was not a queen. Where did
Yeah.
all the face huggers come from?
That's what I was going to ask. Because oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm interrupting.
Oh no, that's fine. I was just gonna say that in his speech, he's like, I was able to all the bioengineered face huggers. He makes a reference to bioengineering those face huggers when he's trying to distill the goo, basically the Prometheus goo. He says that those are all bioengineered by Rook based on the alien DNA. He's basically trying to reverse. He was trying to reverse engineer what makes this thing the perfect organism. So the other thing that hit me when I saw it the second time is the movie really plays up this is the perfect organism.
Yeah. Yes.
It is the perfect organism, and this movie plays it up. It's kind of like, it's weirdly, I don't know why I thought of this. It's weirdly like the Leia scene in that second Star Wars film. I forgot what that's called. The J.J. Abrams series,
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, in that where
Yeah.
Leia's in space, and everyone was kind of upset. You know, remember how
Yeah.
upset everyone was, like when she's in space, but she could like fly through space and
Yeah.
kind of come back. But like they're showing like how the Force is just this incredible power, and it hasn't been used this way, but it can be. You know, in this movie, they are playing up the perfect organism. This thing was shot out into space and burned with a rocket booster, and it was still able to shut down all of its internal functions and cocoon itself and went into stasis, right? It was still able to do all of that. And so they're playing up the perfect organism. They're like, this thing can survive almost anything, you know, except for, you know, bullets, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Apparently.
but so I really liked that. They took that literally, like
Yeah.
perfect organism. And what Rook was trying to do is distill its ability to do all of these things because and then to do it for humanity.
Yes.
And that's Rook's goal. I was very confused in the film the first time because I thought Rook was going to be like Ash trying to preserve the alien. That's actually not Rook's mission.
Right. Yeah.
Rook's mission was to save the goo.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the black goo.
Yeah.
And he's like, you guys should run. He was actually giving them real advice to survive.
Yeah.
There was no like alternate motive there. They're like, you guys are not going to survive. Like, she's dead. You guys need to leave. And then he imparts this mission to Andy, who is susceptible to this now because he's a company robot with that new chip in his head. Right. So those are the things that became clear to me watching it a second time.
Yeah.
Where it didn't quite click with me first time.
So I was thinking about that too. And now you've just explained it around the alien that they had found. And you know what's funny? I thought that what had happened was they found, I didn't connect until actually today thinking about doing this pod with you. I was like, oh shit. Because I started looking up what the timeline was for some reason to the Alien films and where this lied in there. And it didn't dawn on me that might be the alien from the Nostromo. Which I guess, I don't know if you're confirming, they didn't explicitly say that. It is. Okay.
It is. Yeah. That's why they're salvaging the wreckage of the Nostromo because they know that they're like, oh, maybe this thing survived.
Yeah. Right? So,
or not survived. Like maybe they can
find something.
even if they got a corpse.
Yeah.
Like they can. Yeah.
So at the beginning of the film, though, I thought what they had done was they cut through what they had found, the remains, I guess, but they took one half with them. I thought the alien was in the half that they left.
Oh no!
And was climbing out, like, "Hello, you forgot about me." And that's
you're right, though. You're right. It's a bit confusing when that shot tilts downwards.
Yes.
It's actually the outline.
It's just like the outline.
It's like
okay.
Yeah, it's like what do you call it? Like a silicone embed of like the alien.
Yes, yeah, a mold, if you would.
In the mold. A mold.
Yeah.
Mold is the right word.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes more sense to me. But yeah, I then as I started thinking about that, I went to the same place too. Is like, well, yeah, but there were no, eggs or face huggers. It wasn't a queen, etc. So it's not that. But the reverse bioengineering of it as an organism, finding all of these kind of biological secrets. And then reverse engineering those is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I thought that was really, I mean, it's not my favorite. It's a bit of a hand wavy explanation. It's not my favorite, but like they explain it. they follow their own. This is what I mean. Like, I respect this movie for following its own rules.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed this the second time I noticed it, when you see the alien kind of like stuck up on the roof because they've killed it,
Yeah.
and it's kind of pinned up there.
Yeah.
They show the grapple hook. Like, there's a Ripley shoots a grapple hook at the alien in the first film, and it's like sticking out of its back.
Interesting.
You know, yeah. So those little call outs, you know, those work. But but yeah. So that's kind of where it stands. Like those details weren't clear to me the first time, but the movie absolutely, like, everything checks out. Like, the logic checks out. They explain pretty much everything. You know,
interesting. I mean, if they wanted to make that even simpler and didn't want to do the hand wavy explanation, they could have just skipped forward to it. Like, this happens after Aliens, and they find it's the exact situation. You've got this thing fucking floating through space, and they find the queen
in space.
Yeah, they just go from that. They just go down that road, and then you've kind of got the start of Alien Resurrection to some degree.
Yep.
And then they could go there, but it doesn't matter. I mean, look, I'm good with a hand wavy explanation. I don't need. I don't need every little detail to be buttoned up. Especially if it's just kind of exposition for something that happened in the past. I don't give a fuck about that. Tell me where we are. Tell me what the deal is. How did we get here? That's all I need. Now that we're here, what do we do from there? And that's where we're.
So the next scene here, they basically get the facehugger off by using the cryo. Like, it's I love that they've created a flamethrower, but it's a cryo thrower, and it's it's a cold thrower. Very cool. So they freeze this facehugger off, but they're still like. You know, Rook basically says that it's 60-40 against your friend. They may have actually impregnated her during that time that she had the facehugger on her face. That's when Andy's got the Weyland-Yutani chip in his head.
Yeah.
He is now very much turning into a company synthetic or artificial person. Because that's another callback. He says I prefer artificial person myself. It didn't bother me, that one either. So what happens here is, like, he actually tries to stop them from getting back onto their ship that's docked because he knows that she could be impregnated. And he goes into this mode because they've already set up that synthetics can't harm humans. This is another thing. It's so elegant. They've already set up that they can't harm humans. But now you know from that guy's story that they can sacrifice humans for the greater good.
Right. Yeah.
To save more humans.
Yeah.
Right. So suddenly Andy is dangerous, and I thought that was very, very well done.
Yeah.
Very well executed. He starts running and chasing them, and he doesn't get to them in time. She gets onto the ship, and onto their ship in the docking bay, kind of like next to the outside of the science vessel, and she runs into the lady who is pregnant, who's sleeping on the ship, and basically the chest burster pops out of her chest, and the woman who's pregnant is witnessing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
she just woke up from a nap. She's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. One thing also I'd like to call out is that this movie's pretty, it's pretty graphic, and it's kind of disgusting and slimy, and I love it. But the most disgusting thing in this film is when the pregnant lady throws up and misses the toilet just entirely.
God.
I
forgot about that. Yeah.
Entirely misses the toilet. Just fucking, like, good God, it was bad.
I don't like being that guy that talks during a movie, but as soon as that happened, I just audibly went out, she completely missed. Like,
yeah.
Fucking hits the back of the bowl. I'm like, come on, lady, hold it together.
Yeah. Oh man, not the back of the bowl. She hit the back of the seat.
That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah. Back of the seat. Yeah. Bowl would have been inside.
Yeah. She hit the back of the seat.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's trying to sleep that off. She wakes up, and this Navarro comes in, and it has a really cool scene where they have a little X-ray machine that they set up before, and you see the alien inside her chest trying to poke out, and it's a great chest burster scene because it's not one of those ones that flies out of her chest and it is slowly busting through her ribs, like repeatedly, just trying to get out, and it finally breaks out, and it kind of like inches its way out.
Yeah.
While that's happening, it's like, if this isn't bad enough, Okay, man. Like if like this movie is just piling on the bad news, you know. If this isn't bad enough, while she's having this thing birthing from her chest, she kicks the throttle, and now their ship is just careening around the side of the around the side of the Remus Romulus station, and it ends up in like the Romulus side of the station, like the stocking bay. And it's such an intense sequence. It's just everyone's hurt. One person's dead. Now we have an alien on the loose, and then basically what we find with the alien is that it kind of scuttles away.
Mm-hmm.
People are knocked out for a little bit. They're separated. Now we've got Andy, dude, and Rain on this station, and Pregger's girl, guy with the cattle prod, and Dead Lady on their ship. Dead Lady, yeah. So anyway, this introduces another cool thing that I really enjoyed, is a new part of the alien life cycle that we've never seen. Because the aliens are always birthed, and several scenes later they are 8-foot gargantuan killing machines.
Yeah.
They go from little itty bitty things to really large things. This movie shows what happens in between, where it goes into a state kind of like a cocoon.
Yes. Yeah.
Very vaginal. Like this movie's pretty vaginal.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like all around a pretty vaginal film, and this one was this cocoon is no exception. So she stumbles on this thing, and the dude with the cattle prod sees this. By the way, I was very happy with this. I loved it. I loved that they just filled in the blank. Great new part of the alien life cycle, and he does what I would have done in this situation. I was like almost going to start to clap. He takes this cattle prod, juices it up, and shoves it right into that cocoon and starts jacking this thing up with like high voltage electricity.
Yeah.
Great sequence. Unfortunately, it does some damage, but he gets clipped by the tail, and then he dies
pretty badly,
like pretty horrifically, by having acid fall and dissolve a lot of his skin.
Yeah.
So that's pretty terrible.
Didn't go well for him. He kind of had it coming. He is the one character that is extremely not likable, again, by design and to the actor's credit. But it couldn't happen to a nicer person, you know?
Yeah.
If I'm going to see somebody get slowly melted to death, it was him.
Yeah. It's weird, though. I saw this movie twice, and I still don't understand what happens to him in that last moment. Like, his chest explodes. Like, something pops in his chest. He doesn't just dissolve. Like, right at the end, something pops, and I don't know what it is. And I still don't know what it is in the second viewing. Anyway, it's a weird mystery. We'll figure that one out later.
I don't remember.
Meanwhile, back on the station, these guys are trying to find out how to get to Romulus station so they can get to their ship and get out. They go to a room, and they look into the room, and this is probably one of the funnier moments in the film for me. They're looking in the room, and a facehugger jumps to the window, and then slowly slides off, like cartoon style.
Yeah.
Like, that's a little funny. I don't know if they intended to do that or not, but it was very Looney Tunes, like slide down the glass, face planted in the glass kind of moment.
Yeah, Acme Aliens. So speaking of like new components of the alien mythos, we never really seen or really heard about how these things actually track their prey. So the fact that they brought that into this as well in such a way that made a lot of sense. I've always wondered, they don't have eyes. Like, how do they get around? How do they see? How do they do what they do? And the idea that they can hunt by sound, it was sound and by temperature, right?
I think it was by temperature.
Okay.
I think it's almost, I don't even know if they have ears.
Well, in any case, yeah, the fact
Can you imagine a facehugger with 2 human ears on the side? That's great.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Like, it was kind of a cool dynamic, but it also helped to solve a problem. You've got a lot of facehuggers on this ship all over the place. How do we get around? And it was a neat, like, it was a good use of the time in the film, I would say. It was fun. I thought it was a really fun scene. Nobody got it, which was good.
Yeah. Well, they
Um,
don't have that many characters.
They don't, yeah. So
Yeah.
they can't use them as fodder as often,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of this film. Like having fodder for fodder is not ideal.
Yeah.
Like we're not watching.
Yeah.
I'm not here to watch a slasher film. Here to
Yeah.
watch a suspenseful alien film. That's what I want. So
Right.
we're
Yeah.
right there. But yeah, they did some they did some inventive things. I liked how clumsy that those things. Now that they've revealed like these things are not looking where they're going. They're just kind of going on instinct and
Right.
seeking heat. And seeing how they run into each other, how they're running on
Yeah.
walls, how they just run towards whatever is the hottest. Because the guy drops a flare, and they all divulge to that flare for a second
Yeah.
until I guess they realize it's not actually a thing.
Yeah.
But they all like on top of each other, just boom,
Yeah.
go into that little corner. I thought it was a really, really cool and very tense scene because like
Yeah.
even though there's not a lot of people in this film, you don't know who's gonna get it. I mean,
Right.
yeah, there was only
You
2
don't.
potential candidates in that party, but I don't know. It could have been either of them, really. Probably
Yeah.
not the girl, but the guy was on borrowed time.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I really like this sequence, and this is the second monster movie sequel tribute that this movie does because this scene is from Tremors 2, Aftershocks. Have you seen Tremors 2?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm not as much of a Tremors fan as you are, sir.
Listen,
Not that it's not
Tremors-
good, but I haven't-
Tremors 2 and Tremors 3, great sequels to Tremors. That original trilogy is great.
Mhm.
There's a sequence in Tremors 2 where the graboids or the worms in the ground, they evolve to they can walk on land. They're kind of like little velociraptors almost.
Oh, God.
They're called shriekers. 'Cause they
Shriekers.
scream really loud, but they have heat sensors on their heads, and there's a bunch of shriekers in a warehouse at one point in the film, and they all hose themselves down with fire extinguisher, and they go inside, and they can't see them from their heat sensors.
Okay.
And I'm like, guys, come on! Between Jaws 2 and Tremors 2, you guys are pushing all the right buttons over here.
well,
These are callbacks I can work with. Okay, absolutely.
to be
Get
fair,
rid of Rook. We need more Tremors 2 in this movie.
to be fair, they did this in Predator with the
With the mud.
with the mud.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did this in Predator 2 with Gary Busey.
What did he do? Everyone hid behind his teeth?
That's a movie
Yeah.
we got to rewatch
Oh,
together. We've been
definitely.
talking about doing this forever.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll
definitely.
talk about that in the future.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But they did but the sequence is the same because
It's
this
the
is
same?
like there weren't a ton of predators that they were
Right,
kind of
right,
creeping around, and like
Yeah.
this is a sequence. And the other thing I loved about this sequence, they're all puppets. They're all fucking real.
Yeah,
I've never
they
seen that.
look
Like, just-
real. That's
They
the
look
beauty of it.
so real.
And they're making these very small, subtle movements. They're like something
Tapping
is
sounds.
fucking going on here, and I want to fuck somebody's face. That's what they look like they want to do.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, I was built for one thing, all right? And I want to die doing it. Okay? I want to die doing what I love.
Oh, you're legitimately
I need
killing
to
me.
I need to
Oh.
find a mouth to fuck. Like that is that's all these guys live for. Why we take that away from them? You know?
Oh.
They are single-minded and relentless, right? So
They
they're
are.
just tapping. Yeah.
Oh.
There's that one scene, sorry, back to the cryo scene, where the one jumps on his face and he's got his hands between it.
Yeah.
And there's the one like the thing looking for
Yeah.
looking for his mouth. Like
Yeah.
he's got it at a distance and it's like trying to find his mouth so he can stick the thing in his mouth. And I'm like, oh my God,
I
that
know.
is just it's so aggressive,
the
you know,
the
like
pregnation
it's so,
pipe.
Yeah.
It's not. Ugh.
The Alien series has always been super like psychosexual, and I
Yeah.
love that about the series. It's so transgressive in that regard, and like this movie is no different.
No.
They are just really trying to get all up in your mouth, you know,
Yeah.
like without your consent.
Yeah.
So yeah, great little sequence. So this ties up with the alien being born from that kind of cocoon,
Mhm.
because the guy's sister, while they're trying to creep around in this room to avoid the facehuggers, they raise the temperature so the facehuggers can't see them, quote unquote.
Right.
But anything that raises their heart rate and all that stuff will give them away. He gets a call from his sister, who is about to be attacked by this newly born alien, which is a great birthing scene.
Yes.
Amazing, fully animatronic alien, gorgeous, so gorgeous. They even see like the arms and the hands kind of like uncrumple from the thing.
Yes.
Every moment there
Yeah.
was so cool.
Yeah.
And so the brother, who is trying to be quiet and lower his heart rate in that room full of facehuggers, gets this, and he basically can't
Ignore it.
keep his shit
Yeah.
together. And then Andy looks back and he has this moment where he says, "Run," and they all start running down the hallway, and all of the facehuggers start chasing them. And the music in this moment is fucking fantastic. I think the score, we haven't talked about the score. The score to this film really does fit well. It's so well, it heightens everything.
Yeah.
Like everything's on like blasting to 11. While I've listened to the score on its own, it's not something that is like, you're not sitting there tapping your feet to the score, but it is building a solid atmosphere. And there's a lot of percussion in this moment where they start running down the hallway. It's when he throws the flare, Jurassic Park style, and they all chase the flare, and they're chasing after them, and they slip through the door, and Andy closes the door, and they even make a reference like, "Oh, you almost closed the door on us." He's like, "But I didn't."
Yeah.
And he says something to the effect of, "I did better than last time, didn't I?"
Yeah.
Because the last time he closed the door, one facehugger got through and impregnated Navarro. And I was like, yeah, you did do better this time. And it's the chip.
Yeah.
Right? He calculated how fast he was running. He's like, I can start closing the door now. And I'm like, it all just fucking works.
Yeah.
Like it all just works, you know? So Prager's lady is running away from this alien. They meet up in this, they meet up at the Romulus station, but they can't get through the door.
Right.
And she's being chased by this alien, and she's on the other side, and they all meet up now, and Andy won't open the door for them because he says that the xenomorph is waiting for them to open the door, and the xenomorph is kind of just like perched there looking at them, and I'm like, this is really cool. Andy won't let them do it. I love the reactions here. I love the brother, like, of the pregnant girl is like he like gets on his knees and he's like begging Andy,
him. Yeah.
like begging him. And I'm like, this works. I think these actors are doing a great job. And there's not a lot of, meat to their characters, but like these moment to moment stuff really does work.
Yeah.
She ends up being taken by the alien. She has a bad day. Can we just say that she has a
it was a
very
rough
bad
one.
day.
Yeah. She's seen better days.
She really goes through the ringer in this movie. She sees the birthing of like something jump out of her friend's chest. She gets knocked out, has a close encounter with the alien, gets taken by the alien, and we'll get to what happens to her.
She probably had to clean up all that vomit across the fucking thing too.
Well, she should. That was her own fault.
That was her own fault. But that doesn't enhance her day. She wasn't looking forward to that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So then you find out that Andy is like, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the company. And right now my mission is to save this experiment that they've been doing. So they go into this room where the experiment has been executed. And that's when Bilbo Baggins starts appearing on all the monitors and starts talking to them.
Yeah.
And you find out, but essentially that he's boiled down their DNA to the point where it's like basically the substance of their creation, and that is the black goo from Prometheus. So what did you think of this callback to Prometheus and kind of connecting it to that mythology?
I didn't have a lot of thoughts. I thought that, again, we're getting into a territory now where they're playing within the same space of what they've already defined in the other movies, and it's there. It's up for grabs. If they reverse engineered the alien back to where it came from, being, ultimately a facehugger, why not keep going backwards?
Keep going, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, getting there from this makes a lot of sense, and I was good with it.
Yep. I enjoyed it too. And you don't even need... The thing I like about this movie is that its claim of you don't need to watch the Alien films to watch this movie, I think actually holds up.
Yeah.
I think it absolutely
100%
holds up.
agree.
I think people who have not seen an Alien movie can still enjoy this because they explain just enough that you'll get in there. And he explains that we just boiled it down to this goo. Like,
Yeah.
and then they show the test on the rat. So if someone doesn't understand what this thing is, they show it all.
Yeah.
You know, like they show, don't tell, kind of like in that scenario. So I did quite enjoy this. I think this is a very organic tieback. And then you get the scene with the like first model pulse rifles get broken out.
Yeah.
And so this was a callback where I was like, I was kind of like, you know, like I don't think we needed this. But the thing I like this movie, like what this movie does with this and some of the other callbacks, is that it contextualizes it via the characters. So even when he's teaching her, he's like, now they're breaking out the guns. Okay, we're gonna teach our main heroine how to use the gun, which is directly from Aliens. But he says, okay, now point the gun at Andy. So even like there's a little character moment there where he's like, point the guy's like, don't worry, the safety's on or whatever. So like they're kind of like, we're doing the thing, but at least the context is important. Our unique context is going to make this feel not like just a carbon copy and cheap.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That tracks. I like it. This doesn't bother me either. The way I look at it is like, you know, they kind of went down that direction, but they took it in a completely different direction. It wasn't that we were doing Aliens again. It's that we would very much like to, but we physically cannot. So they kind of have it be an interesting kind of way to be able to have the characters navigate through this world that they basically, if the alien's near them, they're fucked. Like outside of being able to lock it out of wherever they are in trouble. Yeah. Hoping to God that this thing will keep them at bay, even just for a little bit, for them to maybe get safe, I thought was actually a brilliant idea. Yeah. So yeah, it didn't bother me at all. I did have the original thought that you did in that, like, oh, are we doing this again? But you know, I didn't feel like it was a big. It didn't feel cheap, and it didn't feel like forced. It just felt natural. Yeah. Did you feel like it was natural, or did you feel like it felt forced?
It felt, I think it felt a little forced. But like I said, it's the context of this, like when I compare it to like that Ghostbusters sequel, there's no context. It's just callback for no reason. There's not enough new to support this. Like, when do you stop becoming your own movie and just start becoming like a verbatim greatest hits album? I think this movie does enough new and contextualizes this stuff enough that it doesn't feel cheap.
Yes. Yeah.
Not everything. I think, like I said, the science officer, Rook, the Ash connection, atrocious. I couldn't. I'm not. The Prometheus thing, I kind of dug. I was, I was into that. And this scene, I was like, it's mercifully short. But again, there is at least one or two character moments in that moment that made it interesting, at least.
Yes. Yeah.
So they go, now they're trying to get back to the ship, and they find the hive.
Yeah.
So this was a really neat sequence. They go in and they find the hive, and they find the guy's sister who is pregnant, was taken by the alien, is cocooned up, but not, Facehugger has not impregnated her yet. So they get her out, and then they talk about, hey, she's bleeding, she may die, how can we save her? And then Andy suggests using the Prometheus black goo to fix her up. And in that moment, they kind of tease that it's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and it happens. But it does eventually happen later, which I think was a very strange decision to make, because she ends up injecting herself later with it. Not like, it just seems like, why not just inject her at that moment, and
also,
I don't know.
Also, there's that, but so her injecting it in herself made no sense to me either, because she didn't know what the fuck was in her hand the whole time.
She was there for that conversation where they said it could save her life. Like she knew that's all. That's the only context that she knew, right?
Yeah.
So she kind of had an idea, but not Like she didn't know what it was or why it could save her life.
Let's not give her too much credit. Let's just say she was dumb and was meddling with powers she barely understood.
I think what they were trying to play at is that she didn't think she was going to make it. I think she was like, maybe she was losing consciousness or something, and she
Right.
grabbed the thing and just like jacked herself up, right?
True. And
So
she's pregnant at that point. She's also thinking like a pregnant woman, which want to save the baby. No, sorry, that sounded worse than I meant. What I meant was that she has a baby and she'll do anything to save it. Not that she's got Prager's brains and isn't thinking rationally, which is also kind of a thing. Screw you if you disagree.
Oh, that was funny, man. That was great.
2 kids.
Like,
with
she's thinking like a pregnant lady. What a dummy.
No, I am absolutely kidding. I'm absolutely kidding.
Oh, that's funny.
No.
Yeah, I know that's not what you meant. But she was like, yeah, she's obviously maybe she wasn't going to make it. She wants to save the baby. But they didn't really establish that. It just, I think there's an extra like 10 seconds there that might justify that decision a little bit more.
You know, one thing I just thought of, this movie doesn't stop to explain all these little nuanced things that we're talking about. Like, that it's the first, like explicitly, like that it's the first alien, this thing about like, like you don't need to, like, yeah, you might think about it later, but it gives you something to think about. This film doesn't need that. And I like that. I think it gives you just enough to make things not, anyways, sorry, I'm kind of going off course. Keep going.
No, but I think that's true. Like, because I enjoyed it the first time, but then I got a lot of this detail the second time I watched it, like listening to the dialogue a little bit more carefully, and paying attention and seeing if it does provide the answers to some of the questions I had when I left the first time. So, what ends up happening is that they get her out, they don't inject her. Now they're all running, and there's a group of aliens now, because what they do find is the crew from the ship. The hive is built around the crew. The facehuggers have implanted them. Now, here's the other thing that I think is really neat, and this is my interpretation. I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know. I think it's a pretty strong interpretation. But why do these now there's a bunch of xenomorphs, not just one, not just the new one that was birthed on the ship. There's a bunch from the crew. Why are they suddenly appearing now and not before? It's because they are running through the hive, and they've effectively woken them up the same way that the Marines wake up the aliens from a dormancy, from hibernation, in Aliens. And I was like, this is like a biological consistency with the alien, and I really did quite like that. So they're chased, and the brother is killed in a pretty graphic way. He gets the tail through the chest, and then gets a hole poked in his head with the tongue, and then a bunch of aliens attack them, and Andy is left kind of in a broken state on the grate. They take this elevator, and this elevator is taking them up to the station. So now it's just Kaylee Spenny, like the main character, and the girl who is pregnant. Now this is another callback where I was kind of groany. I was a bit groany about this, where it was like, she's like, stop the elevator. It's like, okay, you go to the cryo tubes and get yourself into cryosleep, and we'll fix you up later. I'm going to go back for Andy. And she has the pulse rifle, and she's coming out of the elevator, and then you hear the breathing, and it's like it's all from Aliens. The reason this worked for me, because I thought the relationship between her and Andy was strong enough that this would actually happen. Like, it supports this decision. And the other thing is a weird one where, for me, I'm like, if this guy is like carried off into the hive, like, there's no way you're going back over there. Like, that's not going to happen. But he's literally right by the elevator. And she looks at the monitor and sees that there's no activity. So conceivably, she can go down there, grab his ass, put the old chip back in, so he's not asshole company Weyland Yutani Andy. He's like normal Andy, that she's surrogate brother that she's used to. And like drag his ass back to the thing, conceivably without like alerting aliens to her presence. So I was like, that was kind of why that worked for me. I don't even think, like, I just, this is another callback that was on the verge of being like greatest hitsy, and I wasn't too into it, but I kind of bought it just given that logical jump. How about you?
Yeah, you're not saying anything that I disagree with. I don't think I have any, like, I let's keep going. I got something for the later
Okay.
part, I guess.
So anyway, what follows is like probably the greatest sequence in the movie, which is the 0G
Yeah.
sequence where all the aliens chase them, but she discovers that she can turn the gravity back off, so it goes to 0G, because if the acid hits the ship, it'll basically tear the ship.
Right.
They're at the bottom of the ship. It'll just tear a hole and into space.
Yeah.
This sequence is amazing.
Yes.
Like I think this sequence is like the one that's going to be talked about forever. This is what the sequence that every Alien film has a sequence that it'll be remembered for, and I think this is the one that it will be remembered for. It's the zero gravity. She shoots the aliens, and the acid is floating around in 0G, and then they have to navigate through the acid to get to where they need to get to. Fucking brilliant. Very cool.
Yeah.
What'd you think of this one?
That's the point where I wanted to get to. First, they got there from a very basically it was doom and gloom. They were in a no-win scenario at this point, and they were about to hit like the rings of whatever planet they're on. Like, because the time that they're on the ship is borrowed at this point. They thought they had like, what did they think? They had 30 hours and then it turned to like 30 minutes or some shit.
Yeah, 30 hours down to like an hour or 2 hours or something, where until the ship hits the rings of Saturn, which is wild.
So at this point, we're talking about like tens of minutes are left, let's say.
Yeah.
And they've got aliens on their back. They're done. They kick off the 0G, and there's this move. I do you remember the first Guardians of the Galaxy where Rocket gets that gun in the prison? And he just got this
in the prison.
Oh yeah, and that's that to me was that moment here where she just
that's cool.
Yeah, and then just starts picking them off. And I gotta say, like, a lot of movies you would think like, yeah, okay, they're going to float through all of this acid blood and everybody's going to be fine. I didn't have that thought, but I still felt like either of them could potentially be victims to this. And I thought it was a very tense scene. There's a couple of moments that was just like, how is she going to get out of this? Yeah. And I agree with you that this is the scene that I think is going to be most remembered. That and the Facehugger scene. Those are the two that are going to stick with me throughout. But this was very imaginative. They gave you kind of that popcorny, gun-fueled action scene that I think that we kind of wanted at some point in this movie, maybe.
They're kind of fulfilling. They kind of squeezed some gunplay into this movie. I feel like it didn't need it. Like, I don't think this movie needed the gunplay, but that's kind of the part of me that's kind of feels like this movie is a bit too slavish to the first two films in the series, where it's like, I'm going to give you a little bit of Alien, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of Aliens. Yeah. And it's, I don't think they had to do that, but they did. And I think it turned out okay. Like, it turned out pretty good,
Sorry, so we got to take a quick break. Something's going on with my computer here. So let me turn this off and let me off. Okay. All right, folks. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so I had to stop and restart. We're rolling again. We were talking about the
Zero G.
The 0G scene and how it will go down in Alien cinematic history as probably the banger scene of this film.
Yeah. What I was gonna say was the other films, like I was gonna like the first Alien, you have the chestburster scene, which was like huge, right? Second film, I think there are multiple scenes in the second film, but you have like the Queen and the fight, with the Queen. Yeah. At the end of the film, Alien 3 is the chase sequence. Kind of like, for me, like when I think of Alien 3, I think of the POV of the alien, the fisheye lens, and it chasing all the people through the corridors. Sure. Alien Resurrection, you have like the aliens kind of like swimming. That's that action scene. Like like you think of water. When I think of Alien Resurrection, I think of water and the aliens fully swimming for the first time, kind of thing. Yeah. And then Prometheus, you have Prometheus and Covenant are a little different in that they're not strictly, Prometheus is kind of like not strictly an alien film, like doesn't have as, a xenomorph as we know it in there, but just kind of like those types of scenes. Like when you think of the movie, it's like, the one with the whatever scene. Yeah. And this one will be the 0G kind of floaty 0G scene. Yes. Very cool. Really well executed. Yeah. 100%. Loved it. And they continue to use that after the scene rolls on. They get to the elevator and it's 0G still. Yes. And they're basically the elevator won't work in 0G, so they basically just launch themselves upward.
Yeah.
Up the elevator shaft. I'm like, this is fucking wild. It's really, really cool scene. And they go up, and then with the purge, the 0G purge that they've set up already earlier in the film turns back on. You get that where, you know, we get that scene where the gravity is going to get engaged again, and she just misses, you know, grabbing Andy's hand, and so she's just careening down this elevator shaft. Now the gravity's been engaged, and just something that I'm like, how is she going to get out of, like,
Yeah.
you know, I couldn't think of how she's going to get out of this one, you know?
Yeah.
And she's unlikely, her unlikely savior is the alien that was born on the ship. And you can tell because
He's got the
he's got a little
electrical bindi.
Electrical bindi, exactly. In his head. It's very much like, I think we were mentioning this, but like it's like the net alien from Alien versus Predator.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Kind of been marked, so it's easy to tell that one from the others,
Right.
And it quote unquote saves her. What it's doing is there's a facehugger there, and I think it's just holding her so that she can't go anywhere, so this facehugger can jump on her face. But before that happens, the gravity gets engaged, the elevator goes careening down the shaft, squashing all the aliens crawling up the shaft.
Yeah.
And then this facehugger is about to jump on her face. And here comes Andy careening down the elevator shaft, grabbing the pulse rifle, landing on the alien, shooting it in the face with the last remaining bullets of the gun. And then he says the most groan-worthy line that I could possibly think of. And he says, "Get away from her, you bitch."
Yeah.
And kind of stutters on the second part. And I was just like,
the stutter was earned given he's back to Andy form.
Correct.
Well, no,
that no longer.
That had already happened. Never mind. I take that back. Sorry.
What do you mean?
He was, wasn't he?
He's back to being Andy now. Like he's the Andy. No, he's the brother Andy.
That's what I mean. He's been Andy at that point. Like he's been Andy for a little bit.
For a little bit. Yeah.
It wasn't just that because
she
rescued him. They went back, then 0G, then up. Anyways, never mind.
Right,
sorry.
Yeah.
But it was. I also kind of was like, come on, we don't have to say everything. We could have just left that alone.
Yeah,
I agree. That was the most groan-worthy callback I think for me in this whole film.
So, second time I watched it, because here's the thing about this callback: it was so out of nowhere for me.
Mm-hmm.
Not set up, not earned. It just seems like a random thing for a synthetic to say, and that really took me out of the movie. And again, just like, you know, in a sequence that was so original, so unique, and you capped it off with this completely out of left field, just completely random. He just says it for no reason, no context. I watched the movie the second time, and get this. There is context for that line.
Why?
Can you think of it?
No.
So think of his conversations with Bjorn. Bjorn is giving him shit the entire movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at one point when they're launching off the planet to go to the station, Bjorn being the guy with the cattle prod and kind of swatting all the, you know, and he ends up getting melted by acid. He says when he does the little spliff trick when they're like going up and he smokes a spliff on the and he's using the, I don't know what it is about the physics, but he basically burns through an entire spliff in seconds.
Yeah.
And he goes to Andy and he's like, "That's how it's done, bitch." And Andy is like, looks at him real puzzled.
Yeah.
Just like, and then later he says something else, and I'm trying to think of what he said. And he's like, "Oh, whatever, you bitch." And he says like, he says something else. And he says, Andy's just, and there's a shot of Andy looking at him being kind of like, because Andy's learning.
Yeah.
And he's like the entire time, and he's trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
So ending sentences and "you bitch," he's been taught that. And he learned that from Bjorn. So he's saying, "Get away from her." because he's saying get away from her.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
like that. And he adds the you and the stutter because he's like, this is what they were saying
Yeah.
before. And he adds it to the end of the sentence. And I literally couldn't fucking believe it. I was watching the movie the second time and I was like, oh my God, there is crazy context for this line. Now, look, does that improve
Yeah, I
the
was going to
fact
say
that this line is in the movie?
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be in the movie at all.
Yes.
But there's a part of me that is like, they even thought of a contextual reason for that line to be in the movie. It's no longer a line that is completely out of left field for no reason someone says it.
Yeah.
It does have a reason to be there within the film. I don't think it should be there. It doesn't make it any better.
Yes.
But it's that type of, again, playing within your own rules. You've set up these rules, no matter how you've contorted them to fit your own need to stick this line in the movie, but it's there. Like the reason is there. So that was like the kind of like the biggest revelation I had watching it the second time. I was like, oh my God, Andy learned this from someone in the movie.
Yeah.
Which I thought it is kind of cool. Like, that is kind of cool. I don't think the line should have been in the movie at all.
No.
But what can you do, right? It's Disney's Alien at this point.
Yeah.
I'm comparing this a lot, like in my mind. I think this and Prey. I think Prey has a very famous line, and a lot of the Predator films have very famous lines from old from the original Predator.
Mm-hmm.
In Prey, they do the line of where he says,
if it comes to that, I'll do us both.
No, he says, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah, when they're tied to the post.
Yes.
But the delivery of that, I loved the delivery of that line.
Yes.
I actually really liked it because the context was important. Context is always important, right? So you put it in the context of the character. He's not being a total badass. There's a desperation to his delivery in that moment in Prey, where he's trying to get like out of the knot, and he's like thinking practically. He's like, like if it was an earnest delivery that absolutely worked in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it works in this movie, but there is reason for it to be there, and there is context. So that was kind of amusing when I watched it the second time. I'm like, wow, they thought of that.
Yeah.
Not my favorite choice, but again, they're playing within their own rules, and I can kind of respect that.
True. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So they get through they basically they ride the elevator kind of like back up. So they're back on they're back on the ship.
Yeah.
Everything's all good. So it's those survivors that remain are the pregnant lady, our main character, and Andy. Just the three of those that are left. They set up all the cryopods to go to sleep. Of course, the pregnant lady has injected herself with the black goop, and the black goop starts to do its thing, and what we get here is it's hard to describe really, but you get another birthing scene in this film where an embryo comes out, and kind of think of like a caterpillar's cocoon almost.
Yeah.
Comes out, and it is pretty disgusting.
Yes.
And it opens, and there's a baby inside.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the mother's just freaking out, and our main character is carrying this thing, doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Grabs the cold blaster thing to freeze it.
Yeah.
But then sees the baby inside and has a hesitation.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it's just a baby. And then an acid burns through the floor, and she loses it, and the baby crawls out. And now she's chasing this thing, and it ends up evolving into what I think is called the Offspring. Now, what did you make of the reveal of the Offspring?
Gross. Didn't like it.
Pretty gross.
Very reminiscent of the engineers from Prometheus. I mean, not reminiscent, basically the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I had problems with this ending. I would have rathered it be a stowaway alien, and they didn't go this direction at all. To be honest, yeah, like I like the idea of the black goop being something that can enhance humanity. cool, great, good idea. But the birthing scene, and it all moved where this movie took its time and kind of like slowly started rolling out like the aliens here. It's going into its cocoon. It's coming out of its cocoon. You're slowly getting deeper into the ship. You get into the, like, it takes its time. Whereas this whole last 10 minutes of the film is just like, and another alien. And within seconds, it is now a very large problem. Literally, very large problem. I also thought it was super creepy. Like, I didn't like looking at it. Like, it's just, I literally, like, that was my feeling. Like, I don't want to fucking look at this thing. It was off-putting, which maybe is a good thing, but just didn't do it for me. It was very tense. But yeah, at that point, I like, if we're talking about this movie overstaying its welcome, this was it overstaying its welcome. I felt the same way with the human alien hybrid in Resurrection as I did feel about this at the end here too. It was like, you know what? We had this all buttoned up. Why are we back here? Like, as opposed to like Alien, where having this type of thing happen in the getaway ship, like, it's the exact same scenario again. But that was more earned because there wasn't really closure to the alien scene at all. This was just something I feel like they tacked on, and it just didn't feel, I don't know, nothing felt organic about it. It's a brand new monster. I don't know. I was just kind of like, this was not needed. That was my overall feelings about the end of it, the last 10 minutes of the film.
It's funny you say that, because I do think, I mean, I'm a big horror fan. You're not. I don't think you're as
not
big
as much
a horror
as you.
fan,
No.
not as much as me. We've seen a lot of similar stuff, but I've also forced you to watch a lot of like really upsetting things in our friendship, in our long history,
long history of film
friendship.
watching.
Yeah. And I've noticed this about you, that if something makes you uncomfortable, you're not gonna be into it. Like,
No.
And I definitely think the design for the Offspring is designed explicitly to make to invoke a feeling of discomfort. Like, its first reveal when it comes back to its mother, but it's on all fours.
Yes.
Like, that was wild to me. I was like, oh, it's on all fours and it's like got a human head.
Yeah.
I was like, what are we dealing with here? When it goes up on two legs and goes bipedal, I was less I was less freaked out by the design, even though it's still very strange. And I almost feel like if it stayed on all fours, or it would shift from all fours to standing up bipedal, I thought that would have been really, really neat. I think they got the reaction from you that they were intending. You just did not enjoy that feeling. Does that sound right?
That's about right. Yeah. I didn't. There's a sleekness to the alien design that I've always kind of liked. This just seems rigid and gangly and pale, and it has an asshole for a genitalia that's not supposed to be where it's like, it's just, I just didn't like looking at it. I'm like, I don't want to see this.
Stop showing it. I don't want to
see this. Stop showing me this. Like, to me, it was almost like borderlining like a body horror type of thing. Like, I don't want to see none of that. It's not.
You do not like that.
I was talking to a friend today about, or maybe it was yesterday, and we were talking about horror movies specifically, and he had asked me if I had seen Tusk, like the Kevin Smith movie Tusk.
I've not seen that.
And I was like, I'm not into like body horror kind of. I don't care. I don't want it. I don't like it. He's like, what about Human Centipede? I'm like, don't even finish that sentence. I don't even like hearing the words.
I thought you were going to say, don't even finish that centipede.
Yeah, don't even say.
That's what I heard in my head.
Stop it at 70 arms.
Finish
that centipede. Yeah, I don't dig on that stuff, and this thing is just too humanoid for my liking. And
man.
I was at a point there where like, all right, this is they got. I mean, I knew something was going to happen because that stupid bitch took the. But yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, baby brain.
baby brain.
You know that thing when women are pregnant and then they find syringes and they just want to inject themselves with stuff. You know that? That's what she had, I think.
I mean, I've had 2 kids. I've had to deal with all of that. I got to keep.
Put away the syringes. Put them all away. Take them away.
Yeah.
I think this is really funny. I wish I could have had a
I
camera
thought
on
you'd-
you.
I'm pretty
Camera
sure
on you when
So
yeah.
I'm pretty sure the whole time this would have been my face the whole time. It's just like
No. No.
just didn't like it. Just didn't.
Oh
don't
man,
like
that
it.
reminds me of that Puppet Master sequence with the leech lady.
Oh.
You were not into that either. You were not. You weren't having it.
No.
That's really funny. I think that's exactly what they were going for, and I think
Probably.
that reaction is what
Yeah.
they were going for. I think they did a really good job of introducing something that looked visual. This is my opinion, that looked visually different and was actually very unsettling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Alien Resurrection. Like I love all of the Alien
I
films.
am too. Yeah.
And I'm just like I like the newborn. I know a lot of people do not like the newborn in that film. Like I get it. Like but the thing about the newborn to me was that it was still a baby, and
Yeah.
that made it so weird.
Yes.
Like that whole thing, and it would like coo,
Yeah.
like a baby. And I'm like, this is just fucking weird and wonderful, and I loved it. The reason I bring up the newborn, of course, because this is, effectively this is something that's been done before. Like this thing has been done before, but arguably in Romulus, they're doing it better than they did in Alien Resurrection. But the one thing you were talking about, the genitalia, because I remember we were talking about after so the second time because after the first time we watched it, I was like, did anybody, like, what's going on? Like, did anyone, I didn't look at his junk. Like, so I had no idea what was going on down there. And you and my other friend were telling me that it was just like an X, like a weird kind of like X thing.
Yeah.
Second time I watched the movie, the only thing I was looking at was his junk. And I'm just staring at the Offspring's junk. And I'm just like, oh, what's going on down
Was
there?
it everything you remember?
X marks the spot, eh?
Oh.
But yeah, so I was very hyper focused on this guy's crotch. Yeah, it's just an X. But the one that reminds me of one thing from the making of Alien Resurrection, film directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. A lot of the crew was French, and they designed the newborn and they shot the newborn all practical, right?
Yeah.
Great. And it had full genitalia, exposed genitalia on the and they shot the whole thing with the genitals of this thing just hanging out there, right?
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember in the edit where he's like, Jean-Pierre Jeunet was like, we painted it over in CG because he's like, even for a Frenchman, it was too much. That was his exact fucking line. And I was dying. I was like, that's so good. Like, they shot something so, it was so offensive even to him. He's like, we just got to paint this thing out, man.
Yeah.
Because effectively, that's what everyone would be doing. That Alien Resurrection, what I was doing the second time I watched Romulus. They're not going to be watching the scene. They're just going to be staring at this thing's genitals the whole time and being like, what is happening down here?
Yeah.
What's going on?
That's funny.
Anyway, so that's my little genital spiel. Yeah, so this thing chases her, and she basically dumps it into space. Again, I swear to God, space is filled with so many xenomorphs.
Just
it's
fucking floating
yeah,
around. Yeah, exactly.
floating around. It's like Tatooine. Like no matter where you go in space, you'll find a xenomorph floating around. So that's how this movie starts.
It really does.
Like, oh my God.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like,
you can fly anywhere, and
yeah,
they're just floating around out there.
Yeah.
The sequence of her getting away from it and what she does and the visuals we get as the station is crashing into the rings, as the ship almost crashes into the rings of Saturn. Amazing, dude. Like I saw it in IMAX
Mm-hmm.
I saw it in IMAX yesterday.
Yeah.
And dude, those big shots work so well. Those are as good as any epic shot, like Dune or like Interstellar, or like these are strong space science fiction visuals, big visuals that absolutely worked for me. I really, really liked the expansiveness, and then back to the claustrophobia, and then the expansiveness and back to the claustrophobia. Worked. So it was like, you know, peanut butter and chocolate. You know, it was like really, really fit well together. So I enjoyed it. I think it's a stronger third act. It was a surprise. It was the design made it surprising for me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it because the design was so revolting and just kind of like odd to look at. And all practical, right? It was a dude they cast, and they put a bunch of makeup on him, and the sound design was incredible. So like, yeah. So I did enjoy that. So station crashes, you know, the Offspring gets just think of the Offspring. This guy's pretty fly for a white guy.
So
He goes flying out of the airlock, and then they go into cryo.
Yeah.
And just Andy and her, and they fly off to whatever planet this is. I don't know why I think this planet is like a beach resort planet, like they're going to planet Mallorca or something like that, you know, in my head. I hope they are. They've been through a lot.
They need a vacation.
That's right. And then the movie ends, and it's like, this is, you know, Rain, whatever, you know, last survivor of the ship, whatever, signing off. Very, you know, from Sigourney Weaver's last lines as Ripley in Alien. Didn't need that either. I just like, why are we doing this? Just don't.
That's
but
fine.
They do it. It doesn't change the story, but it's just like, you know, just, I don't know. Seems like a lot, you know, like why? You've done enough of your own thing. Just be your weird, intense self. You know, you don't have to be other people.
I think they just knew they upset me so much, so they're like, let's put something he can get on board with. And it's like my nice blanket. I'm just like, oh, thank you for that. I needed that. I just needed a little bit of comfort. Okay, I just was staring at somebody's asshole from the front for as long as I was, and I didn't like it. So.
One last thing I'll mention that I got more of the second time is the reason that the company wants the alien. So now there's a whole bioweapons division that, you know, the alien mythology has been always hinting at.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it's very specific. He's like, I am taking this, Rook says this, I am taking this for humanity. Our goal is actually to make humans more resilient so that they can colonize other planets, effectively making Weyland-Yutani like a universe, a cosmic superpower. Basically, like, it's not even for weapons. Like, it's actually because they've been setting up this whole idea that new diseases and mining collapses and all of that stuff, like, humans are not meant to colonize the stars.
Right.
Survive.
Right.
They're basically just trying to create superhumans. So it's like you can get juiced up and go and colonize planets for us, like making drones out of people, like, but resilient drones. And I was like, that all ties up so nicely, because it's like, it's not just the average, oh, we're just going to create bioweapons.
Right. Yeah.
But it's equally as it's actually even more corporate than that.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like what's the most corporate thing? It's like, make your workers better.
Yeah.
We need better workers. That's why we're chasing this stuff down. So I thought that was a really nice touch for why that's so important to them.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
And that is the end of Alien Romulus. I wish it would just do its own thing the whole time, rather than just some of the time.
I'd say they're doing their own thing most of the time. I don't think that the movie is marred by callbacks nearly as much as you are. I think they really do their own thing. I do think that these movies do need to stop doing that, though, because like it has been done to death. It's just, for me, it's more of a minor annoyance at times. For you, it looks like it's deeply affecting you. And I'm sorry to hear this.
Sorry, what are you referring to?
Just callbacks, just the callbacks in general. Like every Predator movie has done it. Every Alien movie basically has done it. We don't need that anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things I love about the Alien franchise is that every movie is so different, and every movie has themes and ideas that go beyond just kind of the creature feature thriller, like Thrill Ride.
Yeah.
And they're all, the look and feel are all so different. They're all beautiful movies. Like even Prometheus and Covenant, all both directed by Ridley Scott, but like they're beautiful films. Alien 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all directed by visionary directors. Like I love that. And this film, same thing, dude. This thing has its own look and feel.
Yeah.
Stands up next to the first 4 films easily, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like it stands up next to them and continues the legacy of having truly visionary directors direct these films, and the look and feel are very different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 100%.
And I definitely enjoy that, because the films never really did callbacks though.
Mm-hmm.
The
Those
first
ones
4
didn't,
have
no.
zero.
No.
Have zero callbacks, and I love that about them. I love that there weren't any. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say I loved it. I didn't notice it. Everyone is a visionary director trying to do their own thing.
Yeah, true.
They're always trying to do their own thing.
Right.
And Fetty, like, I think he achieves the visionary stuff very well, but he's also beholden to those callbacks. And like, yeah, it's like they bother me quite a bit, because what if this movie didn't have any? What if it wasn't obsessed with, Ash? Like like what other crazy ideas could they have thought up to push the mythology forward?
Yeah. It seems very corporate, like a very corporate thing. Like,
that's a Disney thing.
This.
I feel like this is the first Disney Alien film, right?
You know what? I didn't even connect it. So like, it was very Disney-esque in that, like, it tried to do certain Disney-like things. Yeah. But I didn't even realize, it is a Disney film, right? It's 20th century. Yeah, I didn't even think of it. You're absolutely right.
I mean, like having Ian Holm in this movie is the most Disney fucking thing I could possibly think of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fuck, man. I didn't even connect those dots.
Yeah, like, so, and I feel that, and I feel like it presses the movie down.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that's right.
It weighs it down,
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I think.
Well.
Yeah.
I don't. Any closing thoughts on this, or were those closing thoughts?
No, I think I fucking vomited up everything I needed to say, and hit the toilet with my vomit.
At the back of it, not even in the bowl. Disgusting. All right.
I was like, I hit the toilet. It's like, where did you hit it? You gotta be more specific.
True. Well,
yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this movie. It warts and all, like all its problems. I think it does way more when it's being itself. It's at its best.
Yes.
When it's steeped in mythos and callbacks, it's at its worst.
Yeah.
But I think I love the stuff it does when it's being unique so much more than the negative parts of all of the callbacks. So it actually heavily outweighs that. And again, I made a comparison to Man of Steel, where it's like Man of Steel has problems, but I just kind of like the stuff it does well, I really, really, really like. So it kind of like outweighs the stuff I don't like about the movie.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense, man. All right. Well, this has been a long one, but it is a good one. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and we'll catch you next time on the Welcome to Your Doom show.
All right, thanks everyone. Peace.
Later, guys.